Welcome to the City Council's March 8th regular City Council meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with City Council, city staff, and members of the public participating in City Council chambers in accordance with public health guidelines for in-person meetings and participating remotely to promote social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce City Council members and staff present in the City Council chambers. Vice Mayor Jen Willison, City Council Member Drew Combs, Interim City Manager Justin Murphy, Assistant City Attorney Greg Rubens, City Clerk Judy Herron, City Council members and staff participating remotely are City Council Member Ray Mueller and City Council Member Cecilia Taylor. City Clerk Judy Herron, would you please provide instructions to the City Council and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nash. And again, everyone, a welcome to our regular meeting of March 8th. At this time, we ask that our participants, our City Council members participating virtually to keep your cameras off until you're ready to address the City Council. For members of the public who wish to provide comment after the mayor calls for public comment on that item, we ask that you engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you can press *9 at that time. That does conclude my introductions. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda review. Agenda review provides advance notice to members of the public and city staff of any modifications to the agenda order and any request from City Council members under City Council member reports. Does the City Council wish to pull or modify any agenda item? All right. I would like to introduce Assistant City Attorney Rubens for a report out from the March 2nd closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's no reportable item from the March 2nd closed session.
Thank you. Moving on to presentations and proclamations. Our first presentation is F1 Introduction, Menlo Park Fire District, Fire Protection District Chief Mark Lorenzen. Welcome.
So I don't know if I'm on, in case I am, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Mark Lorenzen. Really excited to be a brand new member with the Menlo Park Fire Protection District. Been here for 4 weeks so far. Looking forward to serving the communities of Atherton, Menlo Park, and East Palo Alto, and working closely with all of you, your councils, and with your city managers. So excited to be here. New to Menlo Park, just relocated from Santa Barbara after 31 years with Ventura County, and I'm looking to a great relationship with the city of Menlo Park. Thank you.
Thank you. We're really looking forward to working with you too. So I just realized that actually, is there any council member at this time? Thank you very much, Fire Chief. I've just realized that I actually missed a page of my notes, and so I'd like to go back to public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the City Council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the City Council once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the City Council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. I will call for public comment at the appropriate time for members of the public to address the City Council on any item under agenda sections, consent calendar, regular business, informational reports. City Clerk Herron, please call for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. This will be the final call for public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. And our first speaker will be Jeff Schmidt.
All right. Hi, Judy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you to everybody for taking public comment. My name is Jeff Schmidt. I live in D3, and I wanted to bring up a topic related adjacently to the downtown plan, but not directly related to the agenda item. I'm the CEO of an education nonprofit here in the Valley, and I'm really interested in community centers and helping students and teachers and parents kind of gather in community spaces. And was looking at a project to do that in downtown Menlo Park. I wasn't sure how to proceed, but the Vice Mayor graciously gave me some really good advice about people to connect with and ways to proceed on how to look at a space potentially for downtown. And the challenges that I might face as I did that. She connected me with Ollie downtown, and so basically I went around, took pictures of all the open spaces, and ended up calling basically about 15 to 20 of the listed landlords. And Judy provided me with the public information that was available on those, which was quite limited through different offices and things. Only a few called me back, and the ones that did weren't really interested in leasing or opening themselves up to spaces like this for the community. So given that the council is looking at how to potentially revitalize some of the spaces downtown, I wanted to just bring this issue up with a really quick recommendation as well. The project was fairly frustrating because it took a lot of initiative to kind of go and do it on my own, but just the lack of transparency in who owned these spaces and what their interest was and were they trusts for individuals. So a recommendation maybe moving forward is annually potentially asking everyone who's a landlord or an owner in the downtown to provide an accurate point of contact, an accurate email address, and an accurate phone number, so that people who are working to revitalize downtown can engage and understand what's going to be done with these open spaces. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that the City Council is looking at this, that even though my project didn't move forward like I was hoping, I was appreciative of all the advice of the Vice Mayor and other folks. And hopefully a simple item like that can help move the agenda forward as you look at working in the downtown space. So with that, I'll give some time back, but thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you for your comment. So this will be the final call for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your comment and your suggestion, Mr. Schmidt. So next we're going to City Clerk Karen, please call for public comment for closed session items L1 and L2.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on closed session item L1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, or L2, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And this will be the final call for public comment on our closed session items L1 and L2. Seeing none, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you very much. And we have already had the first presentation, the introduction of Menlo Park Fire Protection District Chief Mark Lorenzen. City Clerk Karen, do we have any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item F1, the introduction of the Menlo Park Fire Protection District Chief, please engage that hand feature, bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. And this will be the final call for public comment on item F1. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you very much. Our second presentation is F2, Presentation Downtown Market Study. To introduce the item is Interim City Manager Justin Murphy.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'll be introducing our two consultants from the firm HDL that the city has engaged over the past couple of years for some supplemental staff services, but also some specific reports and studies. And so this is one of their work products that they'll be sharing this evening. So it'll be Barry Foster and Kirsten Hines. So they'll be both giving the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Justin. Mayor and City Council, I'm really excited to be here before you tonight to provide an overview of the downtown market study. As Justin said, we've been working with the city for the last couple of years, providing some economic development staffing services. And so just a little bit about, my name is Barry Foster. I'm a principal and managing director with HDL. I started up the economic division of HDL Econ Solutions almost 8 years ago. So we've done work for 145 mostly cities, some special districts, and then a handful of developers. And so we're excited about working with Menlo Park. And just to kind of go through a PowerPoint that to give you some of the highlights. And we had the opportunity to present this to Mayor Nash and Councilmember Mueller as the Economic Development Subcommittee. And so again, we're happy to share it and join it with the City Council tonight. So can you go to the next slide, please? So just to kind of set the stage a little bit. So this is an overview of the downtown Menlo Park trade area. And so you're talking about, the population of Menlo Park, a daytime population of a little over 42,000. Then when you go out and you look at the drive time area, so that's established with a 20-minute drive time, and that can fluctuate depending on the time of day. So it's really kind of an average of 255,000 within that 20-minute drive time. I mean, and you bump up your daytime population to 370,000. So it talks about kind of the composition of Menlo Park in the trade area with average household income level and composition ethnically of the community. Next. So when you're specifically looking at downtown Menlo Park, we looked at some of the benefits and some of the opportunities there. And so you've got about 200 unique upscale galleries, shops, markets, financial institutions, personal services, dining choices, just an array of different types of businesses within the downtown area. You've got some mixed use and some new residential developments that have been happening in and around the downtown. And what that does is it produces new consumer opportunities for the downtown, for your businesses that are down there. Really excited about the renovation and the opening of the Guild Theater. I think that will provide a really important component to Menlo Park and specifically for the downtown area to provide entertainment opportunities, but that nighttime activity they think you really need to have. You got some other things that really help the downtown. You have a Caltrain station, Stanford's close by, and then you've got just a number of different corporate campuses that are within close proximity of the downtown. And then you have some temporary outdoor seating, some community spaces that are interesting. Excited to see that there was a second farmers market that opened up down there too. So I think that's producing those special activities, those special events that are really important to downtowns. And we've done a lot of work in a number of downtowns in California. And so I think that having those kinds of special activities and special events are really important to drive people into downtown. Next. So I'm gonna let Kirsten go through a couple of slides now.
Thank you. So this is Kirsten Hines. I'm a senior advisor with HDL Companies. So when we completed this downtown market study, we looked at 4 different kind of competing downtowns that are nearby and comparable to Mountain View or to Menlo Park. We looked at Redwood City, Mountain View, Palo Alto, and Los Altos. The things that were that made these downtowns successful that they have in common are having mixed uses. So including residential units, retail, entertainment, restaurants. They each have about a 15 to 18-hour downtown, which means that they have activity during the day and into the evening. They each of these cities holds a number of different events like farmers markets, outdoor concert and movie series. Mountain View has a Taste of Mountain View for people to go and check out all the different restaurants in their downtown. Los Altos holds an event on the first Friday of every month where they have outdoor music and the restaurants are packed and people can walk around and see all of the retail and other opportunities in the downtown. Can you go to the next slide, please? So these kind of similarities between these four downtowns are part of what makes a successful downtown. So the walkability and easily accessible connections to transit, and they have the mixed use, including the residential, retail, entertainment, dining. They have longer evening hours and activities throughout the day, these 15 to 18-hour downtown environments. And then some other things that really make a successful downtown are things like placemaking. So having gathering spaces and interesting places for people to hang out at and to identify with and to create an identity in the downtown. So having the 600 block of Santa Cruz Avenue is a good example of creating a gathering space and helping create an identity for the downtown. And then additionally, establishing branding and adding things like gateway features and wayfinding signage to help establish that, sense of place in the downtown and to help brand and create that identity. And then hosting frequent community and special events, having a diversity in people and business offerings within the downtown. Creating uniform and evening store restaurant hours. So having consistent hours across the board when it comes to retail and restaurants and creating those evening hours as well. And then creating a strong economic opportunities and having a critical mass of successful businesses. And then lastly, parking availability is extremely important to make it easily accessible for people to get into the downtown. Next slide. And so just some examples of activities and events that could be held in Menlo Park or just events that are held outside of Menlo Park. So it could be a concert series or music events, food events like holding multiple and ongoing Taste of Menlo Park events for people to try the restaurants and then get to see all the different retail and service businesses throughout the downtown. Doing something like a summer movie series, brew or wine festival, holding educational series that are family friendly for children or adults, doing some sort of classic car events, and then arts festivals. And next slide, please. And then I'll turn it over to Barry again.
So we looked at consumer demand and market supply for Menlo Park, and so what this is looking at is looking at what people are spending their money on in Menlo Park, and then what they're able to spend on it in Menlo Park. And so it's kind of telling in terms of if they're then taking their money and spending it in an adjacent community or some other place. And so I was kind of look at this as the glass half full. So this is lost opportunity for Menlo Park in terms of sales tax revenue, but it's also it's opportunity to try to fill these voids and looking at these gaps, and because people are spending their money, and so we certainly want to make sure that they're spending it in Menlo Park, and we can look at the downtown area as a place for them to spend their money. So if you look over at the third column talks about the percentage in terms of what's leaking out, and then the fourth column looks at the actual dollar figures. And so we've got a software that will measure that, what people are spending their money, and then what's leaking out into they're spending that in other communities. And so you've got clothing stores, little over almost $16.5 million being spent outside of Menlo Park by people who live in Menlo Park. Building materials, again, $15 million. Full service restaurants, surprisingly, is over $9 million is leaking out into other communities. And then even casual and limited service restaurants, almost $7 million. And so again, this is opportunity that you can bring some of these uses in and fill that void and that gap. Next, please. So our company, one of the main focuses of our company has been around for 37 years, is we do work for about 400 cities and counties in California for sales tax consulting. So we have our database has 99.2% of all the sales tax producing businesses in California. We're able to track that. So we really understand and know sales tax revenue. And so I think it's important to know that most communities are back to where they were kind of pre-pandemic in terms of sales tax, but the businesses are not really back to pre-pandemic until in terms of cash flowing and meeting their margins. And so but certainly we're kind of headed in the right direction, but there's still some work to do. So when we looked at sales tax being generated in the downtown area, there was 222 active businesses generating sales tax. For the period between 2014 and 2019, we had a pretty solid 16% increase. Menlo Park, like every other city, really kind of bottomed out with the pandemic for a period of time and had a pretty big decrease, and that was a trend statewide. But those things, again, starting to pick up again, and the new quarter is just coming out now, and so pretty encouraged where it's getting, but still their margins and their cash flow is not back to pre-pandemic. If you look at the highest sales tax performing business units in the downtown, and this represents 80, almost a little over 88% of all the sales tax being produced. Is in three categories: general consumer goods, restaurants and hotels, and then food and drugs. And so again, in these three categories, they're producing a really substantial amount of your sales tax in the downtown area. You go to the next slide, please. So this is the top 20 sales tax producers. This is not in a ranking of how they do in terms of performance. This is alphabetical, but you can just see who the top 20 sales tax producers are in the downtown. And I'm sure you're aware and know those folks, but again, they're the top 20 sales tax producers in the downtown area. Next. Then when we first started this, we actually did a number of focus groups to really kind of get some feedback from folks. And so I think we had 3 focus groups, and then we also had a focus group meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and so we were trying to really kind of solicit their ideas and thoughts on what works in the downtown, and maybe some challenges, some things that could be looked at to really take the downtown to that next level. And I know Mayor Nash was involved in a lot of those focus groups, and we appreciated her being a part of that. But some of the things, and these are not probably shocking to council members, I think that a lot of this has been kind of looked at over the years, but it's really to improve the aesthetics of the downtown and create kind of a modern and branded look and feel. Is to really emphasize the need to shop local and spending your money here in the downtown, encouraging the expansion of mixed use that produces more consumers for the downtown, having that residential there, and it really helps drive, again, what I talked about earlier, that nighttime activity, to make sure that we're enhancing the parking accessibility and availability. And then just looking at, I talked about earlier, this is really, really important for downtowns, is to have ongoing special events that you're driving people into downtown, and so that they're used to coming down there. All the different types of events that Kirsten talked about earlier, those are really important. That really helps with the success of a downtown area, especially today. Next, please. To the next one, too. And so what we came up with was a number of recommendations that we'd like to have the city council to consider. So, and we broke these out into 4 different categories in terms of types of recommendations and suggestions, but we also broke them down into timeframes. And so we're talking about things that can be accomplished in near term within the next 6 months, and then short term within the next year. And then as we get into a little longer term with midterm in the next 1 to 2 years, and then longer term, kind of a 2 to 3 year period, maybe a little bit more work to look at these kinds of things. So the first category that I want to hit on is placemaking and enhancing a sense of place. So I think you've got an opportunity, lots of downtowns, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, they were looking to have parklet programs and other kinds of opportunities for outdoor dining, especially when restaurants weren't allowed to have people in them. And so I think that there's been some success with that, but I think you're also looking to have some consistency with those programs and having a little higher level of improvements to enhance those, and having some. I think it would be good for the city to have some consistent design standards and some beautification efforts to take those for a little longer period of time. And then in terms of looking at more of that short term, that 1 year, is to really work with the commercial brokers working in the downtown area, with property owners, with the Chamber of Commerce. The speaker earlier today talked about some of those vacancies. And so I think when we started looking at the market study, we had 14 vacancies. I think we're down to 8 now. And but there's some communities out there that have done some really interesting things in terms of taking some of those vacant spaces and using some temporary uses. Los Altos has done it, Danville's done it, and Santa Cruz has been pretty successful with the program, where they're maybe doing some pop-ups and some temporary incubator kinds of businesses to reuse those, or even doing some kind of temporary storefront looks. It's just so you're not looking at an empty space. I think there's a lot of different things that you can do to really to really address those empty vacancies. Next, please. And just some things in terms of these are a little bit longer term, midterm and longer term, is looking at doing some of those design considerations and looking at wayfinding signs so that you can get people around, they can be attractive. Looking at a possibility is maybe having an entryway arch at El Camino Real in Santa Cruz, so that you know that you're really getting into the downtown area. And a lot of communities that we worked in, they've developed design guidelines for that kind of the consistency I talked about, that in terms of what the streetscape looks like, architectural designs, design elements, hardscapes, landscape features. I think all that can be really put together with some consistent design guidelines that can really serve the city into the future. And it's again talking about some of those improvements and streetscapes and making it just kind of taking it downtown to that next level. One thing that it's actually been explored a little bit in Menlo Park before, and it's being looked at right now in Mountain View, is to close maybe a couple of blocks of the downtown and create a pedestrian mall environment to really kind of create that sense of place, that focal point where you can expand and do some more outdoor dining and some other, just having another people place, a pedestrian environment for the downtown. Next. And then the next category is creating more activity in the downtown and producing more consumer demand. And that's something that downtowns all over are really kind of striving for, is to drive more people into the downtown and help really set the stage to make it successful. Doing a shop local campaign for the downtown, I think it's really important to make sure that people know what's there in your marketing, your downtown area, getting people to come down there and spend their money down there. And it's really important for them to spend their money. I talked about earlier with the consumer demand, what's leaking out into other communities. You want to make sure you're capturing that in your downtown area, and people are keeping their dollars in downtown Menlo Park. I talked about the need for more special events and regular events, and I think that's a really a must for downtown. And we look at downtowns that are successful. It's just having an array of different kinds of street fairs and farmers markets and concert and music series and food events and, you know, all those things to really drive people to the downtown. And you know, they may come down there and go to a special event and they see a store or a restaurant that they didn't know was there and they come back again. And then just looking, there's a number of different things that, again, I think the Guild Theater is working really actively with them to have that nighttime activity. The Guild will have, and I think they've been successful so far, but they're going to produce that nighttime activity and drive people into the downtown. And then hopefully after they've gone to an event, they can go to a restaurant and whatever. It's increasing those hours of activity in the downtown area. Next. And then, you know, again, I talked about establishing that shop local marketing campaign and oh, sorry, go to the next one. I think we just did this one. Okay, and then again, I talked about the Guild Theater, but you know, what successful downtowns are is they're trying to create that 15 to 18-hour environment. And, you know, things start to slow down quite a bit in downtown Menlo Park after 6 o'clock. I think with all the new residential that's coming there, all the mixed use, producing that consumer demand with the Guild Theater, I think you got a real opportunity to have more restaurants and have some more stores open later. And you're just having that activity extend into the evening and striving for that 15 to 18-hour environment, which I think is really, really important. Next. I'm going to have Kirsten go through the other two categories.
Thank you. So this third category is infrastructure improvements. And I will say that some of these within this category could also be placed under the placemaking section, but they are more focused on infrastructure. So the first recommendation is to develop a plan to install more bicycle racks, trash and recycling containers, looking at installing public restrooms in the downtown area, and evaluating the need for additional handicap or senior parking accommodations. These are all things that are obviously very important to a downtown, and having things like consistent designs for bicycle racks and trash and recycling containers, it can actually go a long way. So developing that plan can really help with creating that sense of place in the downtown too. And then within the short term, we recommend developing a schedule to make improvements to public hardscape, including the streets, sidewalks, parking plazas, and the lighting structures for safety and aesthetics. Both of these items are relatively light effort, making these plans to improve, but the plans need to be in place in order to actually implement these items. Next slide, please. Our midterm recommendation is to create a master wayfinding signage program for the downtown. So again, this is helping with the placemaking within the downtown, but adding those infrastructure improvements to the downtown. And this will help people find their way throughout the downtown and understand where everything is, how they can get to the park from the downtown, or how they can get to certain businesses. And then our longer term recommendation is to study developing parking structures on city-owned and operated parking plazas to just create more opportunity for people to come and visit the downtown area and park there. Next slide, please. The last category of recommendations is city planning and economic development. So our near-term recommendation is to work with the Chamber and Downtown Business Alliance to undertake a survey of downtown businesses and residents to understand their ideas to improve the downtown. And so the key partners in this would obviously be the Chamber, the Downtown Business Alliance, and talking to the businesses and the residents. It's important just to understand where they're at, what their needs are, what is working and what's not working for them. And then our short-term recommendation is to partner with the Chamber of Commerce to adopt a formal business ombudsman or concierge program to improve the communication between the city and downtown businesses. So looking at success of this would be like looking at the number of small businesses that are listed as a % of total businesses. Having that go-to person really helps open up communication, and then also clarify any questions or concerns or whatever it may be. And then we recommend that the city look at ways to enhance the planning and entitlement process to improve ease and efficiency for applicants. And so you could look at the time that it takes for the city to review applications to measure the success of this. Next slide, please. And our midterm recommendation is to pursue a comprehensive review and update of the El Camino and downtown specific plan. This plan is about 10 years old now, and so obviously with the changes that COVID has caused, and all of the changes that we're seeing in downtowns throughout the state, in our area, looking at updating this plan is will help guide future implementation goals for the downtown area. Next slide, please. And I'll turn it back to Barry.
Yeah, I'm just going to hit upon a couple things and finish this up. But we wanted to have a couple of things that we thought were some action items that we could do really in that near term. And so one that I talked about earlier is expanding the Parklet program on Santa Cruz and coming up with those consistent design standards to really beautify the barricades that are in place there, and just really to kind of make these a little more attractive in terms of where they are now, because I think that COVID and pandemic are still going to be around for a while, and so I think we're still it's becoming some of that kind of new norm and understanding that. And then the second thing is that I talked about is to establish that shop local campaign for the downtown, really to kind of really promote what's there and make sure that we're getting residents to come down and spend their dollars in downtown Menlo Park. Next. And again, these just kind of talk about, we think that we can launch the consistency with the Parklet program this quarter. But I think we can just have that consistency in the look of some of these Parklet programs and outdoor dining to have a little nicer look to them. Next. Next slide, please. And then the last one I'll just wrap it up with is that shop local campaign. And I think there's a real opportunity to really drive more people into the downtown and to really promote that as a place for people to come spend their dollars and really frequent and use those businesses downtown. So I think putting together a shop local campaign for the downtown will be a real must. But with that, we're happy if you have any questions to try to answer them.
Thank you very much. City Clerk Karen, do we have any public comment on item F2?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item F2, presentation on the downtown market study, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And our first speaker will be at Dean 11.
Sorry, I think I just turned the hand. I just raised a hand by accident, so I'm going to lower a hand.
Thank you. So our next speaker will be Katy Bruce.
Hi, Katy Bruce. I'm a member of the Complete Streets Commission, but I'm speaking for myself. I had some comments and some questions. So first of all, I'm happy to see that the recommendation to review the downtown specific plan, because the question I kept asking myself when I was looking at this was, what is our goal? What are the metrics by which we determine a successful downtown? Is it sales tax revenue? Is it creating a community gathering place? Is it better serving existing merchants? Because some of the things I saw in the presentation seem to be tailored to different, is it supposed to be a regional draw? I will say that personally, I really appreciate having a downtown that has things like not just restaurants, but also places like grocery stores and hair salons even, and places where people go regularly to run errands. And I hope that we can balance the desire to be sort of a regional draw or hub with being able to retain some of those essential businesses so people don't have to always drive to a shopping center. I really also, I've been watching the Cal Ave street closure and noting that like it's working really well for the restaurants, and that a yoga studio that's been there forever closed and a clog shop might go away, and the grocery store is expressing concerns. So again, just really try to strike that balance. I do support street closure, however. I also think it's going to be really important for you to review the bike and ped bus car circulation throughout the whole downtown specific plan area, especially coming out of the new developments along the El Camino corridor. Ideally, those people won't necessarily be driving to town, but we need to make it safer for them to bike and walk. And that's going to probably mean bike lanes, better crosswalks, pedestrian signals, et cetera. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, I'm going through my list really quickly. I was curious about something in the presentation or in the report. I'm not sure, I haven't heard any local residents asking for more furniture stores or saying that like the sort of furniture design district concept is really meeting their needs. And so I guess I wonder, I'm sure that that feels like a good thing for the existing merchants who've sort of clustered. But I hear more about wanting things like restaurants and shops and, healthy fast eating options those also seem to be doing a lot of the sales tax revenue. So I guess I would wonder why we would be doubling down on the expensive furniture strategy. Not sure about that one. I'm also really curious from the consultants, retail's hurting everywhere. I think there are vacancies everywhere, and e-commerce has really hurt retail in general, even before the pandemic. I'd love to know what kinds of businesses and entertainments and retail are we anticipating will thrive? Oh, finally, what levers does council have? What are the bureaucratic hurdles? We heard a public commenter earlier talking about his experience. Do we have weird permitting stuff? Like if I want to open a business downtown, what is in the city's control that could make it easier for me? Not just the landlords, but the city, parking minimums, et cetera, like fire stuff. It would be really great to understand that and to have the community understand that as well. And I'm out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Fran Dean.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Fran Dean, Menlo Park Chamber of Commerce, and my comments are really an overview and a call to action. So with the absence of dedicated economic development staffing, Council approved this agreement with HDL in November 2020 to evaluate and provide focus on economic development within Menlo Park. Tonight's presentation is the culmination of one of the deliverables, the market study for the downtown. The report is a referenceable overview of what one needs to know about a city and its downtown. The market analytics, neighboring comparative information, consumer assessment, and specific descriptors of the current environment. All of this contributes to your future decisions to correct, improve, or enhance the current state. The report is a formal acknowledgement or recognition of a series of knowns. Many of these things we have known before and we've talked about. The value of the report is not merely an economic representation of current state in a single document, but most importantly, one followed by recommended steps. The matrix grouped by categories, accompanied by a suggested cost and timeline. For lack of a better term, it is a call to action, a series of remedies with a timeline, a compendium of ideas. Menlo Park has so much going for it right now. The Guild Theater is a reality. Springline opens in the coming months, and Middle Plaza is close behind. This is our opportunity to continue the momentum and revitalize the downtown. Use the report, be selective on the features you choose to implement, and of importance, budget for that short and long-term implementation. Everything can't be done at once, but progress is a series of steps taken. Thanks very much for your consideration, and understand that as the Chamber of Commerce, we're here to support you as council members and city staff in the revitalization of Menlo Park.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Dean 11.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff, and consultants. Dean 11, I'm on the Complete Streets Commission, but speaking for myself and actually wanting to give a public comment on purpose right now. And with regard to the opportunity to update the downtown specific plan, which was something that took a long time to develop and was put into place, and would probably take a long time to also thoroughly update. There is an opportunity that is significantly shorter term that is before the city this year, and that is the housing element. One of the things that was really mentioned in this report is the benefit of having a population of people that are near the downtown area and are able to patronize the businesses. You can't see me because this is a Zoom meeting, but I am walking with some food that I purchased at one of the food businesses in the downtown. I live near downtown. I love being able to be someplace that has food businesses and a hardware store and other drugstores and other practical businesses, and having the people nearby also creates demand for the other kinds of businesses. And therefore, in the housing element, one of the things that's been mentioned frequently is the opportunity to create homes for people, and including mixed use components of developments, which can help us meet our housing element requirements to have homes for people of all income levels, as well as bringing more people to the downtown who can patronize the local businesses that we have. So that's not the immediate term kind of thing that you can do in a year, creating events and music and parklets and so on, which are all great. But the housing element is something that can happen significantly more quickly than updating the entire downtown plan. And we need to do it. We need the sites. We have locations, and there probably are policies to look at to be able to make it easier to be able to bring the people into the downtown to utilize the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be
Madam
Jen.
Mayor, I need to step away from the meeting very briefly. May I please make my comment before I step away?
Yes, if it's acceptable to the city clerk. Excellent. So yes, we will stop public comment for a minute so that City Council Member Ray Mueller can provide some comment.
Thank
Please
you. Yeah, so I just had a quick question for the consultant, and that was, it would seem to be your opinion that the Guild as an entertainment venue added to the vibrancy of the downtown and what was possible. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I just real quickly, that's just one entertainment venue, and it's only for one select demographic, usually, someone who is an adult or older. That's right.
Yes.
All right, and so if you had an entertainment venue that hit other demographics, that would obviously add more vibrancy to your downtown and breadth of market, correct?
Yeah, I think all the better.
All right. So just moving real quick, my comments to my colleagues are on this, that I very much think, and I noticed in the consultants report, they talked about the parking availability. I think our downtown parking lots are frankly abysmal. They need to, the spaces are too small. It's hard to navigate, and they are filling up. And I think it's time we really talked about a parking garage. I'd like to see it be mixed use with housing. I also very much want our council to consider an entertainment addition to the basement of one of those. And I'm going to give you guys the name of the cinemas. It's called the Village Cinemas in North Stars. It's 2 theaters, 100 seats in one theater, 45 seats in the other. It is not big. Yet today it's showing Batman and Uncharted, 2 top tier release movies. The reason why it can do that is because North Star owns the land. And so they can keep the lease low and have an operator operate it without high rent. And we could do the same thing as a park I recommended in Menlo Park, which would add a tremendous amount of vibrancy and give our kids something to do besides just sit on park benches downtown. They could do something in our city, which I think is sorely needed. And I think it's another entertainment option for adults after they go to dinner. I also like the signage. I think though, in terms of wayfinding signage, there's something that we could do now. We need a public billboard sign downtown that lists downtown events and upcoming concert schedule at the Guild, so people know what's coming and they can see it when they're downtown. Right now, all we have is a banner that flies across one section of the downtown, and it can only show one event and people fight over it. So I really think we need something that people can go and look to, see all the time and know it's coming. The other thing that I'd like to do, and Adina touched on it, but I'd like us to consider our housing element to expand the downtown. And by doing so, what we can do is upzone the other side, for instance, of Ravenswood, and look at putting in mixed use so we have more retail opportunities along with that upzoning, and expand that downtown footprint so we can create some competition and just more space for retail and whatnot. And then the last thing I want to touch on, I have heard from our downtown merchants, specifically our restaurants, that the Guild is having already an immediate impact. And I've heard it from multiple restaurant owners now who I've asked that nights that they have events, they see an uptick in their business, which is a wonderful thing. One thing though that's also come up is that a lot of the downtown restaurants, we put together a $5,000 grant program to try to help them get their costs back through the pandemic. But unfortunately, it's been very difficult in terms of what we required of them to actually get the money. So what I'd like us to do in the future, and I know we can't do it tonight, I'd like it to come back to us, to just give all the restaurants who made improvements during the pandemic $5,000 grants so that they can go ahead and pay off, because Kevin knows they spent more on their parklets and improvements. So if they can just show they did it during we can go ahead and get them the grant and get them their money, because a lot of them haven't received anything from the city, and we put that program together to help them. So those are my comments. I did them quickly. I apologize. I need to step away from the meeting for about 15 minutes. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me speak, and thank you to the public who've been waiting so graciously to continue public.
Thank you, Councilmember Mueller. Let's go back to public comment now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So our next speaker will be Jeff Schmidt.
All right, thanks, Judy. Yeah, so I just wanted to add on to my earlier comment. I didn't realize that maybe what I had to say might also be really relevant to this discussion. So in addition to this challenge that I had about commercial brokers as a barrier to reaching property owners, who may or may not really want to fill those spaces. So there's challenges there, and knowing who those people are and having relevant points of contact and things like that's great. But the original idea was around a community gathering space, maybe volunteer run, funded by community partners or philanthropy. And this has been a really interesting discussion because it really does go to what the consultants were saying around creating this sense of place and regular activities that are different beyond just fun. And I love what Councilmember Mueller just said, because, I spend a lot of time downtown and there are kids hanging around Starbucks and not a lot of things for them to do. And even beyond just an entertainment venue, if we had sort of this, the community gathering space where we could run classes, we could talk about relevant topics like climate change or environmental stuff, things that really draw people in, families and people from surrounding communities. I think that's a very unique way to create a destination space, keep it open a little bit longer, so that we can have people come to restaurants after they maybe finish a class or the activity. You could even bring, music into a space like that. The challenge will clearly be finding the right space, finding a commercial broker who is willing to pick up the phone, and finding a property owner who's maybe willing to do that. But I think we have organizations that would be willing to support an idea like that. So I wanted to put that out there, in addition to my earlier comment about how difficult that was for me as an individual resident to do. I think if the city council could get excited about some version of an idea like that, obviously there would be a lot more ability to get things done through city council and a select few citizens who would be willing to champion that idea. So wanted to put that out there because it built on some of the conversation about creating a destination and a series of activities, a focal point, which I think are both excellent. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for your comment. So this will be the final call for public comment on item F2. Seeing no further hands raised, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you very much. So we will now open for city council discussion. Vice Mayor Willison.
Waiting for you to call on me. Thank you, Mayor Nash. I have a couple of quick questions for the consultant, just to make sure I'm understanding. Looking at the Menlo Park retail demand supply numbers, which are really interesting. The building material supplies dealer, is this saying, am I reading this right, that our residents spend $38 million in building supplies? Is this annually?
Yes.
Okay. And so do the furniture and decorating stores fall under this category, or is that more of the general merchandise?
It'd be more under general merchandise.
So right now, so what are examples other than Ace Hardware and Gray's Paint of other building supply, building material? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar
Okay,
with.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, but yeah, they would fall into that category. So I think that's certainly that's a big piece of dollars being spent outside the community.
Okay, thank you. It also said that the sales tax for the city, that 16.8% is coming from downtown. Is the balance, more of our life sciences, or just given how much we focus on downtown?
Yeah.
Tax.
That was kind of interesting when we looked at that it's a smaller number. So certainly sales tax is important, but really the downtown is kind of the heart of your business community. So I think it's beyond just sales tax revenue. So the remainder would fall into some of those other shopping centers that are not in the downtown area. But there could be some, you could have some R&D and other kinds of businesses that had point of sale too. And so like, the big thing now is like e-commerce. And so that some of those e-commerce places are actually producing sales, or it could be some business and construction would be another good example that could be producing sales tax too. So again, that while cities want to have sales tax produced, and it's an important revenue source, I think the most important is really the downtown is really the heart of your community. And so it's looking beyond just sales tax revenue.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, Mr. Foster. Thanks for mentioning that. And I couldn't agree more when I was thinking, what is the difference of going downtown for shopping versus going to, like, I don't know, a strip mall or somewhere else for a meal? It's that sense of community and, bumping into your neighbors and feeling like this is your hometown and this is where you want to spend your dollars and spend your time. So I definitely see a community benefit and value in having a thriving downtown way beyond the sales tax figures. So I think that concludes my questions for you. I guess for staff, I know this is a presentation, not a study session. I would assume that before kind of we do any next steps, we're going to be doing some sort of study session or conversation. So information that I'd be curious in learning more about at that stage is to Mr. Schmidt's point about his experience going door to door, I guess, downtown, and really understanding, who owns these properties. I hear a lot from residents of what kind of stores and shops and restaurants they want to see downtown. So what are the barriers from having those come in? Is it parking requirements? Is it that, a new restaurant coming in would require a lot of, updating of code that, might reveal, I don't know, asbestos. I don't know what's going on in the old downtown buildings, but kind of what are the barriers from seeing some vitalization, and then what, to Ms. Baruzzi's point, what are the levers that the city has in addressing some of those challenges? I'm also, obviously been enjoying the parklets. I have heard from at least one business owner in an area outside of downtown that was wondering kind of what's the long-term strategy that the city has with the public space, and kind of who gets to use the public space, and if there's some longer term, I don't know. I know we're just coming out of the pandemic, so I wouldn't want to see this anytime soon, but kind of charging for street space and what that looks like as we look to a longer term solution. I think we have to keep fairness in mind, and how we're treating all of our businesses, and making sure we're showing all of our city businesses the love that we're showing downtown. Yeah, and I also agree that the streets and how they're designed, I think it's, again, wonderful that we've jumped in with the street closure, but if that's going to remain, how can we design the street to be intentional about it, for circulation reasons, for aesthetic reasons, for everything like that. So these are kind of questions that were triggered for me reading the information. And I agree with Ms. Dean that, a lot of this wasn't surprising or shocking, but it's nice to see it all in one place and to be able to jump off of it for further discussion. So I want to thank the staff and the consultants for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you. So I had one question, and that was on the consumer demand and market supply chart. Is that listed for just downtown or for all of Menlo Park? This is for consumer demand and market supply.
That's for all of Menlo Park.
That's what I thought. So that's not, okay. Thank you very much. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nash, and thank you to the consultants for the presentation. So I have a few thoughts. My apologies if they're a little random and unmoored. But first, a question to staff. What's the next step? I know that there are recommendations here, some short-term, near-term, some middle-term, some long-term. What's the next step after this presentation?
Let's see. So the basic next step is most likely going to be some sort of a council study session, if time permits, from a staff perspective and in council agenda perspective. So otherwise, some of that's to be determined based off a number of factors. But this document is here, and it's available to us as the council proceeds with the budget planning for next year, things like that. I'd say that the two action items that were kind of summarized at the end, one related to the parklets and the other related to shop local, are the two that have the greatest likelihood of some progress. One related to the parklets, as the council know, at some point in time, there's to continue the parklets there's going to be a need for a different type of ordinance to keep those in place. So that's something that's definitely on the horizon. And then with the shop local, one aspect of that is the efforts through SAMCETA with the Choose SMC program. So that's one aspect of shop local. So those are the two action items that have the greatest promise. The other items would require quite a bit of council input direction.
And so regarding the parklets, is it the part about the sort of aesthetics of the parklets, or just the continuation of the parklets that you see as next steps? Because I saw
think there's with HDL's assistance, that is something that staff is looking to kind of address this aesthetic issue. So far, it boils down to the two components. One is the barriers. Again, we've got the concrete K-rails versus the water filled, and whether those could be potentially wrapped with banners, things like that, different ways of dealing with the actual aesthetics of the barriers. And then as it relates to the other aspect is the design of the parklets themselves. Again, with HDL's assistance, without much of staff effort, HDL can work on trying to move that aspect forward as well. But the intent of all of this is to not have a big impact on staff over the coming months without council weighing in.
And with regards to the design elements, is that something that would come back to council?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of doing the research of, what have other
Like
cities
wrapping
done?
barriers, though. I mean, it seems kind of
The barrier part, no. If it's wrapping, if it's part of it depends on what the cost is on that. So it all depends. The aspects of it may not need to come back to council. No.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. And that leads me to another question. Where is the city at with regards to hiring an economic development person or personnel? I know, I think Ms. Dean mentioned that. I've heard reasonings why that position hasn't been filled by the past city manager. But where does that stand now? Is that even an open position, or is that not an open position? Where are we at there?
It is an open position, but I think it's about one of 40 open positions. And we even have staffing challenges with the team that runs the recruitments for those open positions. So yeah, there's tremendous challenges there with filling a single position.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Again, very much appreciate the work and the presentation. Nothing here especially shocking or insightful. And to me speaks to what has been an issue, and that is that we have studied ad nauseum downtown. It has been studied by, again, over the course of my time being involved the past decade. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that it's been studied. The shop local marketing thing, we've done that before, like a couple of times. Those things, I'll say are rarely, if ever, successful in any substantive way. And I would say that like it would be a waste of time and effort, even if it's minimal, to go down that road again. For me, the question is, what are we exactly doing? Like what's there? And I think the key figure here missing is an economic development personnel figure, someone who is going out and actively selling the city to businesses that might be interested in coming to the city. I think we can do tons of analysis about like, whether we want building materials or bars or restaurants or I don't know, other types of shops. It is who is interested or could be interested in a landscape of hopefully the tail end of a pandemic and a changing retail landscape that is quickly shifting to online and delivery to home. Like, who are the businesses that are interested in? It's, to me, that's more interesting than like, what our needs might be, because our needs are irrelevant unless we're going to put the money to fill them. It is who in the private sector is going to step up and who's interested. And I don't think that we have that answer, but I think that it needs to be, we need to prioritize someone who's going out there and whose sole and exclusive job is to market and engage the business community with regards to downtown and other business opportunities that exist in the city. And so I would prioritize that, just from my perspective, above all of these other things. And I'll close, and I go, obviously, like most other people in the community, downtown regularly, but I go every Sunday to the farmers market, right? And then come back along Oak Grove. And every Sunday, I am witness to a scene I've never seen in Menlo Park, which is an enormous line of people standing out in front of Sun and Garden. I mean, this last Sunday, it was outrageous. I mean, that had to be at least a 3-hour line. And so I've never eaten there. I don't know what they're cooking, but it is something that is mighty good, because I don't know what I'd wait 3 or 4 hours for to eat. That's like not even a ride at Disneyland. So, but that's not a scenario where, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, that the city went through some grand marketing scheme or plan, or it was a restaurant space that was available, that it actually failed in at least a couple, if not one other previous incarnation. And a business owner who had been successful and knew the niche in the market that he or she operated in, had a product that attracted consumers, and found opportunity in Menlo Park and went for it. And so to me, that's what we want to do as a city. We want to build relationships with those people. And no one now is doing that. And so when we do get it, it is sort of a random event of which we are lucky. And I think with some of these restaurants, I think with Sun and Garden, I think that proprietor lives close by. And so that was one of the things why this property or this opportunity became paramount. And to me, I think that that's what's missing and has been missing in all of these studies, and is missing in a Shop Local campaign, and is missing in some of the other things, is like, who are we out there? Who's out there really trying to establish relationships on the part of the city about those interests and those people who can come to the city and do business, again, whether it's downtown or not. And so for me, I think as we look to next steps, and I'm just expressing my opinion, I think that is the priority. But I've seen all of the studies I need to see. I don't think I need to see another study. And I don't think we need to engage in this huge analysis of what's missing. It's someone has to go out there and say, like, hey, I'm the person here that's here to promote Menlo Park, and I'm here to establish relationships with everyone that needs to that may be interested in doing business with us. And I think that would include, going back to Mr. Schmidt's part, and the opaqueness of the ownership of downtown properties is a long time issue. Again, some there are family trusts, some there's sort of Prop 13 issues. Some aren't motivated to sell, and certain are motivated and even to rent out their space sometimes. Those are all issues which we can explore, but again, that is what it is. Like, you can't make someone sell their property. You can't. I know in some communities there can be fees and fines, but in Menlo Park we don't have one. If you don't sort of lease out your property. And so I certainly think that's worth exploring, but there are those people and those entities that I think are interested in doing business. And I think we need to be establishing relationships with them. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Combs. City Councilmember Taylor, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. I believe everything was said already, and especially knowing that with all the challenges and the fact that this will come back to us in a study session, everything was already stated by by my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I actually agree with you. I think that economic development director is very, very critical to our city. I think all of us agree, including staff. Is there anything else that is needed for this item at this time? All right, very good. Thank you. And thank you very much to the consultants for this. So the next is consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the city council may take action to approve routine businesses items in one motion unless a council member, city staff member, or a member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. City Clerk Heron, please call for public comment on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on our consent calendar, items G1, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a software service agreement for the Parks and Recreation Registration Management Platform. G2, adoption of a resolution initiating the Menlo Park Landscape Assessment District proceedings. And G3, waiving the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the municipal code to allow increased signage for qualifying projects. Please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. This will be the final call for public comment on our consent calendar, items G1 through G3. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. Is there any city council discussion or questions on the city consent calendar?
Madam Mayor, I need to ask that G3 be voted on separately from the other two. I need to recuse myself from G3.
All right, so Councilmember Mueller is requesting that G3 is voted on separately. Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. I was going to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. City Clerk Karen, please state the motion and call for the vote.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, I have a motion by City Council Member Taylor and a second by City Council Member Combs to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item G3. Any further City Council question or discussion? City Council Member Taylor, I see your hand raised. Is that? All right. Seeing no further question or discussion by roll call vote, City Council Member Combs,
Yes.
City Council Member Mueller,
Yes.
City Council Member Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Willison,
Yes.
Mayor Nash.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And then did we want to call for a motion on a second on item G3?
I'll move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. And just give me one moment to pull up the motion. Okay. So I have a motion on the floor by City Council Member Combs and a second by City Council Member Taylor to.
Madam Mayor, just one comment on the recusal. I think it's appropriate to state briefly why a council member Mueller is recusing himself.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah,
Would you please state?
as stated during the first reading, I
Excuse me, Councilmember Mueller, could you speak a little bit more loudly?
I'm saying, yeah, as stated during the first reading, when I had received a campaign donation from a person affected by this ordinance, and as such, given the timing of that donation in relationship to this item, even though it is not, it's not the basis of a legal conflict, I believe it's for public trust appropriate to recuse.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor by City Council Member Combs with a second by City Council Member Taylor is to waive a second reading and adopt an ordinance amending Municipal Code Chapter 16.92 signs outdoor advertising to allow increased signage for qualifying projects within the SP-ECR-D El Camino Real Downtown Specific Plan Zoning District. Any further City Council question or discussion? Seeing none by roll call vote. City Council Member Combs,
Yes.
City Council Member Mueller recused, City Council Member Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Willison,
Yes.
Mayor Nash,
Yes.
and the motion passes with City Council Member Mueller recused. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is regular business. Under regular business, the city council considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require city council approval. The regular business item is H1, adopt a resolution to install no parking restrictions on a portion of El Camino Real and timed parking restrictions on a portion of College Avenue. To introduce the item is Assistant Public Works Director Hugh Lauch.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. Let me try and share my screen here real fast. All right, can you see my slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, thank you. So thank you, Mayor Nash and council members. Appreciate the opportunity to bring forward this conversation. This is a follow-on conversation from one we had last week about potential parking removals, and there were a number of questions and discussion topics that we needed to some additional time to go and do some research to answer. So we've done a little bit more research and have a little bit more clarity on a few things that we think is important, and some reasons for a kind of a timely decision on what we do with these parking restrictions. So what I will do quickly is do a little update on background, not the full thing, just to highlight some key items, review some of the key questions we heard from all of you a week ago, and then walk through what we think the feasible short-term options are for you to consider. So to start, I wanted to talk about some of the background. So you'll remember that this particular item is a function of the Middle Plaza development that's in progress right now. Active development project, supposed to have occupancy starting around mid-year. It's several buildings, so it won't all happen at once, but by around mid-year this year, they anticipate occupancy of some of their buildings. And part of that project will develop a number of offsite improvements. And of course, all developments do that, but especially a development as large as this one has several significant improvements. And this isn't even all of them, but the ones that sort of impact Middle Avenue are the addition of a turn lane to provide access to their facility, to their development. And that includes some signal upgrades as well, a new crosswalk that'll be on the south side of the intersection, and then a new 10-foot sidewalk. And it's actually sort of a 15-foot sidewalk zone, but the 10-foot sidewalk that'll be there, it's approximately 10 feet, is on an easement from Sanford, because the right-of-way, as I'll show you in a minute, actually only covers the current set of trees that are planted there right now. The other thing to know is that Middle Avenue, if you go up and down El Camino Real within Menlo Park, it is the only intersection that doesn't have a median today. So that's sort of a unique situation. And it doesn't have a median largely because of the kind of constrained dimensions that we talked about last week. And then the other thing that's really important is that as we were having conversations, realized the work at the intersection is imminent. In fact, some parts of the work had been started for a while that relate to the curb ramp near the Safeway, and other work to put in that new turn lane from the southbound lanes to access Middle Plaza is ongoing even now. And so we really, within the next couple of weeks, we anticipate that part of the construction of their project will be underway and will need to be completed. So we thought it was very important to come back and have a clear conversation about that and make whatever decision is going to be made. So there were a handful of questions that we got last time. We had I would say a wide-ranging conversation, but these might capture some of the key sort of options that council wanted staff to look at. So one was about potentially shifting the median. So right now the median is being built on top of a center line and posts. and could that be and you know, is being built sort of equally on either side of that, and potentially shifting that more towards the east side where Middle Plaza is a little bit, so you could preserve the parking. There was some question about whether or not we could look at reusing that space that's going to be sidewalk, and making that, you know, sort of a bikeway and a sidewalk fit within that space. And then finally, there was a little bit of question about whether or not we could do a potentially a wider median, because we had, again, a lot of conversation about the median being quite small. It'll be among the smaller ones that we have along El Camino, although there are others that are pretty similar, maybe 3 feet in size, and wanting to sort of recognize the desirability of providing enhanced pedestrian, you know, a refuge for folks who are crossing, especially for folks who maybe can't cross as quickly. So those are all great, wonderful ideas and desirable outcomes. And so what we did was we put together this sort of high level summary, and hopefully this is clear. It was put together pretty quickly, so please don't read too much into the diagram. It's not meant to be you know, an engineering diagram. It's really meant to be sort of a visualization of what the street, or really the street as you approach Middle, between, you know, from College, say, what it would look like, and each panel is meant to be a different option. So they all represent the same space, but they provide sort of different kind of pieces of information. And what I want to do maybe first is just draw your attention to what the conditions are. So these sort of purpley lines, dashed lines here, represent where the right-of-way is today. So you can see the right-of-way basically covers from the sidewalk that's on the west side all the way to what is currently a planting strip today. And those trees, as I understand it, were planted intentionally a while ago. And actually, if those trees are removed, and we talked about this last time, they cannot be replaced because of the pipeline that runs sort of adjacent to them. So any removal of a tree would mean that no tree could be replaced. You know, outside of that is the easement that I mentioned. So this is approximately 10 feet. And then Middle Plaza buildings are sort of directly adjacent to that space. And then you have sort of in the northbound lanes, you know, right now you have 4 lanes, so 3 through lanes and a left turn lane. And then in the southbound lanes, you have the 3 through lanes and currently parking. And as we mentioned, there are about 8 spots of parking that are there right now. And so we looked at these kind of different options. So the first option is the one, number 2, I would say, is the one that we brought forward to you last time, just so that's shown there. And the little bike symbols are really meant just to show that, you know, as part of the consideration of this was whether or not a future bikeway would be possible. They're not meant to indicate that that's the intent here tonight, just to make it clear, you know, where that would be possible under these various scenarios. So then the options that were asked about, so option 3 really is to shift that median from where it is here, sort of right along the center line, a little bit to the east. And that would allow you to retain the parking on the west side. And it would sort of foreclose sort of a street level bikeway at, you know, unless we came back and did some more significant reconstruction at some future time. So that's important to know. And or if we were to start looking at, as I mentioned, doing something with the space of where the trees are, moving the curb, that would then, of course, foreclose replanting those trees. So that's what that option represents. The 4th option listed here is installing a wider median. So we talked about that. And the wider median, again, you know, has some of the same implications, obviously, of the existing 2-foot median. It would certainly require removing parking on both sides. And then you'll see we put a bikeway on one side. That's just meant to indicate you probably have enough space on one side or the other, depending where you put that median. But that's not something that's gone through any kind of design process so far. So really just to indicate that we're not sure exactly which side that would be, but we would know that you would only have room on the street on one side. And then finally, the last one, the 5th one, is meant to indicate, you know, what it would look like roughly if you were to think about putting a bike facility at sidewalk level in that existing easement space. And obviously, that easement space is not something that we have control over. It's something we'd have to ask Stanford. You know, we have an agreement for a walkway on that easement, but it doesn't sort of give us the right to then just unilaterally change it. We'd have to have an agreement on that first. But also you would end up with, you'd end up with sort of the narrowest sidewalk, because 5 feet's about the width, the minimum width that we will typically design for a sidewalk. In the specific downtown specific plan, calls for this sort of 15-foot space that's 10 feet ish of sidewalk and 5 feet of furniture zone or planting strip, which is about what we have today. And that's kind of what's shown as the minimum in the specific plan. So this would obviously be a change to that. But then it would allow you to, again, have a wider median and then presumably do something on the other side of the street, either in the street or otherwise at some future time. And we've kind of assumed for the last one, if you're going to go to the trouble of building a sidewalk level bikeway, you're probably also going to remove the parking on the other side so that you have bike facilities on both sides. But obviously that could be something that was done at a future time. So that kind of walks you through those options and some of our thinking about them. And then stepping back from that and thinking about how we would evaluate this, the real key question to us is, which of these options is something that we can consider and contemplate now, given the sort of short time frame that we have to think about this, and given the work that would need to be done. And one of the critical things that we need to think about is the process by which we would get any of these approved. So we have the existing conditions today, and even with putting in the new crosswalk, there are other segments of El Camino Real, not in the city, right? Our city, but in other cities that have, just striped lanes and have crosswalks. So we would still put the crosswalk in, that new crosswalk on the south side either way, but we would, and they're just not put in the median. So that is sort of a feasible option. And then obviously we believe the 2-foot median is feasible. All of the other options would require a substantial, and let me just click forward, really require a lot more long-term planning for us to reasonably consider them. So they would require both new Caltrans approvals, but also they would require things like changes to potentially the downtown and El Camino Real specific plan, and they might require a much more robust conversation. And I just want to say, we understand and definitely think a lot about the long-term desire to put a bikeway on El Camino Real. And really, since the study that the city conducted, there's been a lot of work by other jurisdictions to think about, and other agencies, I should say. So Caltrans has done work, the county has done work, we've done work as part of a collaborative effort with other cities, and all of those are trending towards the recognition that if you're going to provide a bikeway on a higher speed street, the ideal bikeway you provide is separated because it's going to be safer, it's going to be more comfortable, it's going to be a more sort of all ages and abilities kind of facility. But that's a big undertaking, and that's something that I think we would want to have, very clear direction and guidance from council to undertake that as a significant effort before we started trying to figure it out at this one location, knowing that up and down El Camino Real, there are going to be a lot of challenges to implement that, and we're going to have to work through a very sort of robust process to get ourselves there. So the way we see it is there are sort of two basic options, and then let's call it one of them an enhanced option. So option one is to install the 2-foot median that we had planned, that's in the approved plans, and remove the parking now. And that was what was presented last time. Option 2A is really just to not do the piece of work that is the median, do all the other work, which is going to be happening, and retain the parking in the short term. And then we can revisit what happens here in the future. And then the sort of 2B option is enhancing that with maybe some enhanced crossing thing. So there are these, and this is an image from Glenwood that shows some enhanced kind of raised posts. So right now we have post space about every 10 feet in that center line stripe where the turn lane is. So we could do these sort of more raised posts potentially. We could also, because the roadway does sort of vary a little bit in width, and because the lanes do shift a little bit across even that one block from middle to college, we might be able to build a small bit of median at the front of that and then narrow the lanes in the way this is shown. But all of that would be something that would require approval from Caltrans. It's not something that we could guarantee. And it is something that we would need to spend additional staff time on as we move forward. So we really frame this in terms of the options. And then relative to the conversation that we had last week, we're assuming that all of these options include removal of the parking on the east side, as we had previously mentioned. So this is not how you typically get your recommendations for action. And instead, it's sort of a set of options. And all of these are reflected within the draft resolution. And we actually have the exhibit that goes with that resolution, and then a couple other examples if you choose to pick one of these options or another that we can pull up as needed to demonstrate exactly what we mean by these. But if you think of the parts of the resolution as options, so the first part is that removing parking from the east side of the street. And that was really intended to do now before occupancy begins, recognizing that we have multiple plans that show eventually having a bikeway. And again, wanting to avoid a situation where we've provided parking and then, at some point in the future, we take it away again. The second is to potentially remove parking on the west side between middle and college, which is what we spent most of our time last week speaking about. And that really, the rationale there is really to add that 2-foot wide median in the short term. And then the final piece, which really goes with that second item potentially, but could be done independently if it was desirable, is to convert the parking on that first block of College, roughly the first block of College Avenue, to 1-hour parking. And that's the parking that's currently signed as or unsigned. So it's essentially allowable all day. And that's really, if you do remove the parking, again, the logic there was to provide customer parking for those local businesses. And I think, as we mentioned last week, depending which business you're going to and how far away you're parking, it's probably about 150 to 250 feet is where that parking is from the local businesses who would be losing their parking. So those are the potential actions. As I say, those are all within the resolution, and the resolution itself, if some of the actions were taken and not others, would need some editing to reflect that, but that's something that we would do based on your direction. So with that, I'll say thank you and take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from council? City Clerk Heron, could you please call for public comment on this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item H1, adopt a resolution to install no parking restrictions on a portion of El Camino Real and timed parking restrictions on a portion of College Avenue, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. Our first speaker will be Katy Bruce.
Hi, Katy Bruce, a member of the Complete Streets Commission, speaking for myself. I had a couple of comments and also a question for staff that I'm hoping maybe council can have staff answer. So I know this is a high accident intersection, and I think adding another leg to it is going to make it worse. I did look up the SWITR's data, which is the state accident database, and we had, I think, 11 bike ped accidents between 2009 and 2020 that were recorded by the state. So that doesn't include all the near misses. So I'm definitely excited to see, considering that we're going to have 215 new apartments opening up across the street from this retail strip. I'm excited to see bike and ped improvements sooner rather than later. It's also seems to me that this median actually plays a fairly important safety role for vehicles. In fact, when you look at the Google Street View, you can see that the bollards, or whatever the temporary flex stick things are, some of them are not, they get knocked down ostensibly by cars, and so, if there's some way, I guess I would like to know better the safety case for the median. I'll also say, I don't know if anybody on council had a chance to talk to Rainier, who is the owner of Menlo Bello, but I had a conversation with him on Friday, and then actually went over to the shop today to kind of, again, refresh my memory of the lay of the land. Rainier told me, as I hope he told you, but he might not have had a chance to, today is another one of his days off, that he's actually very supportive of the improvements that staff are suggesting. He's looking forward to having more bike and pedestrian traffic to his shop. He also mentioned that his observation is that some of the other retailers on his block, including the ones that spoke up last time, also have some parking behind the shop and seem to be using that a lot. And so when I went by today, I checked out and it did look like, there were some people parked in front. There were also lots of people parked behind, and there was, I think maybe only half the spaces today were full. So my hope is that, eventually when we are able to put bike facilities in front of these shops, that the combination of behind the store parking and around the block parking will be sufficient to keep these retailers healthy. And I know there are other places in our city where we've also removed storefront parking, and places that have never had it, like Sultana, and those places seem to be doing okay. Notably, the Guild doesn't really have a lot of on-street parking in front of it, but it has a 500-person capacity. So I think people are able to walk to things they're excited about. And so I'm hoping that that will keep the safety and all these additional customers and the additional complexity that they bring in mind as we think about what to do with this area. That was really my comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Frank Schuman.
Good evening, everyone. I spoke last time about the parking, and I understand, but I've driven up and down El Camino from San Mateo to Mountain View, and pretty much all the retail stores or stores that are retail on El Camino, pretty much all have parking in front of them on both sides. And some have 2 lanes, some have 3 lanes. I just feel that taking the parking spaces away from these retail stores basically it's going to hurt them. And times are hard right now, and you need the business to keep going. And if we take it away, people are just going to go elsewhere. And I just don't think it's fair, to the businesses to take these parking spaces away, especially when you have some, people, seniors, for them to walk for a block is hard. And I think, we have to really look at this and make sure that we take care of our customers, and a lot of them are local. So I don't know. That's the only thing I really have to say. So I hope we do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. This will be the final call for public comment on item H1. And our next speaker will be Namesake Cheesecake. And if you could state your name for the record, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Shree Spicer. I'm the owner of Namesake Cheesecake. I also spoke last week. So I have the same concerns as I do. I appreciate some of the new options that might be coming about. But at the end of the day, again, it comes back to the fact that my business is required and detrimental to having these parking spots in the front. I think Katie just mentioned that Rainier, who is my next door neighbor, is all for the bike lane. Well, he owns a bike store. So of course he's in favor of the bikes, which is pretty funny because today his employee was actually in one of my parking spots because the parking spots they have in the back, they use for the customers. Our parking spots in the back are used for myself and my chef. So we don't have multiple uses of parking for our customers, nor do I want them to come into my commercial kitchen through the back into the front where we, give away our food and serve our food. One of the things I wanted to bring up is F2 on the list tonight was talking about presenting the downtown market. And something they proposed was proposing local businesses operation, improving parking, accessibility, and availability. And I feel like all of the support that they have for these downtown businesses and local businesses, taking our spots away goes against all of that. They were proposing people coming into town. They're worried about loss of sales, opportunity loss, people spending money elsewhere. So again, taking my parking spots away will do exactly that. One of the things that I am so ecstatic about and frankly honored to have is when my clients come in and they just are coming from Oakland, from San Francisco, from San Jose, from Daly City to come and pick up a cheesecake. If these guys are driving that far into town, into Menlo Park, and they have nowhere to park, do you think I'm going to be able to have this client continue if it's an issue for them to come in and get a simple cheesecake from us? I so much appreciated City Council Combs talking about establishing relationships with the local businesses. That's what I'm asking you guys to do. How are you helping the local businesses that have been around for the last 10 years like myself? I'm happy to do my homework. I'm happy to take advice from you guys. I'm happy to do whatever it needs to happen, but I cannot do that if something like this will shut my business down. And I've been here for 10 years and I'm trying to make this continue. And I just ask for you guys to be on our side as well, and also the bike lane. So thank you so much for having us. I appreciate everything. Mayor Nash, thank you for tonight.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Adina Levin.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. Adina Levin. I serve on the Police Streets Commission. Speaking for myself, speaking of the car parking for the businesses, I really support moving ahead with the short-term parking around the corner. I think that for people who are, doing something like carrying a cheesecake, like opening up your car door into traffic isn't really a safe thing to do. So I think that customers will really appreciate having a car parking that they don't have to be getting out of the car in next to 40-mile-an-hour traffic. And I also support doing things that will keep our options open in the future for, as we have wanted to do as a city, to work on the bicycle facilities in the long term, where, as part of the regional program. And lastly, I think that the most important thing about this, what's going in right now, is putting in the second leg of the crosswalk so people can walk to and from the existing stores and the new developments and be able to safely cross the street. So please do move ahead and approve putting in those crosswalks, which are the most important thing that's being discussed by the City Council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Karen Grove.
Good evening. I am a Menlo Park resident, and I have an 86-year-old mom who's really fit and runs her own errands. And I would just I don't like to park on El Camino because of opening my door into traffic. And I hate the idea of her doing that. So I don't think the parking spots they're certainly not comfortable. I don't think they're safe. I'm really wanting some cheesecake right now. But I think what Adina said about the short-term parking, which will make it available for quick pickup, is a good solution, or at least mitigating factor. And mostly, I just hope that you'll prioritize bikeability. And to me, that looks like, I think it's column 2, where there's bike lanes on both sides. And the median is also important for people crossing the street who may not make it all the way across. And it's not ideal because it's small, but it's better than nothing. So thanks.
Thank you for your. Our next speaker will be John Donahoe.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. My name is John Donahoe. I'm Director of Planning Entitlement for Stanford University. I brought this project to the council back in 2017 for approval. Prior to that, I, along with others within the Stanford community, monitored the progress and the development of the specific plan. that established all the guidelines and all of the mechanics that allowed us to build the project that you see that is nearing completion. And in addition to, I think, the concern of getting the crosswalk, the second crosswalk implemented, I wanted to remind the council that one of the elements of our development agreement for this project is to help assist in the funding of the grade separated crossing. So we as a project and as the university are very interested in the safety of this. But I also want to support staff's conclusions that it would be extremely difficult to take any additional room from the Stanford side. We probably have the longest continuous frontage along El Camino Real and Menlo Park. We never opposed the removal of parking on our side. We always felt the issue was for the longest time whether there would be a third lane of traffic or would there be the implementation of a bike lane. So we have designed our project accordingly. I can't overestimate how difficult and the amount of time we spent in designing our project because of the Hetch Hetchy water line that is right at that curb line, working with Caltrans, the city, and the Public Utility Commission for the design of our project, and it would be very difficult to make adjustments on our side of the property. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. So this will be the final call for public comment on regular business item H1. Seeing no further hands raised, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the public commenters for your comments. Before we open up for council discussion, I believe there was one question about the safety of the median in the middle from the cars. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Nash. So maybe a couple of things about that. My read of the safety data in El Camino Real is that, every intersection of El Camino Real has a sort of above average number of collisions on it compared to many other parts of the city. Obviously, it's one of our busier, higher volume and higher speed roads. And unsurprisingly, perhaps those are the roads where we see more collisions. Middle Avenue and El Camino doesn't stand out in that way to me, but we haven't looked at every single collision for this. This again is really sort of responsive to the development review, but just to make that note so that definitely there are safety issues and they are important to us to address. The median itself, it is there because of the safety benefits. Obviously, one of the most dangerous kinds of collisions you can have between vehicles are head-on collisions, and medians are a time-honored treatment to help reduce the likelihood of those collisions from happening. That being said, in this particular location, because of the design of the actual intersection, we don't actually see any of those types of collisions today, and that's great, right? We certainly don't want to see those. But what we do anticipate being a sort of emerging issue is that as the development completes and as you have new left turns coming out of Middle Plaza and onto the southbound lanes of El Camino Real, you will have an issue where it's a new movement that's not there today, and the potential for those vehicles to sort of more likely kind of cut through into that space if there's not a median is one that is a risk that we would want to sort of monitor and observe going forward. And obviously it all depends on how much vehicle traffic there is and who's in what lane at what time, but that is something where the median would provide safety benefit for vehicles. And then certainly, I think as other commenters have mentioned, and as we talked about, I think extensively last time, it does provide, it's a small median, it will provide some benefit for those crossing the street. It's obviously less than, sort of our desired standards where you have a full refuge, but it is something that does provide some safety benefits for people crossing as well.
Thank you, Director Lauch. So we're now open for city council comment. Is there? Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, so just to cut to the quick of it, I support option 2B, retaining parking on the west side of the street. And then I'd like the city to move toward option 5. I realize that Hetch Hetchy is under it, but if you're shaving off sidewalk to only street level, you're not going to implicate the Hetch Hetchy. I know it's something that Stanford hasn't considered to this state, so it's something that we need to work with them, obviously, to get to, but I think it's worth it to get a protected bike lane there. And candidly, I think the residents who live there over time will grow to appreciate that bike lane, and then we can figure out eventually how to try to get a protected one on the other side. I still have great reservations about how wide open the street would be there without leaving the parking on the west side. And candidly, I've been spending a lot of time going up and down El Camino to other cities north of us, and have spent a lot of time parking on El Camino. And while there are some folks who may not feel comfortable doing it, I can tell you in other cities, the parking is on El Camino in front of retail and restaurants is utilized. And I myself will circle the block continuously until I can get a space on El Camino in front of those buildings. So I do think it will have a detrimental effect on the businesses in Menlo Park, and want to keep it there until we have a safe plan for, and hopefully a plan that can provide protected bike lanes on El Camino. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nash. Thank you for the presentation. Mr. Louch, can you explain to me, so if council ultimately goes with no median, or at least official or supports this idea of some sort of bollards, why would you need to take away parking on the east side?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to answer that question. Thank you, Councilmember. The point about the parking removal on the east side is that that is more sort of looking forward to a time. So because there will be new residents there and new businesses, and essentially to avoid the situation where we've provided parking, and then when at some future time we do think about putting in a bikeway consistent with the other city plans, assuming that that is a direction that we are given to go in, it's sort of preparing ourselves for that future moment. And that's the conversation that we had also with Stanford, which you heard John speak about as well, so that it's not related to the median at all. It's just really a separate consideration.
Yeah, and so, but then we don't know when that happens, right?
Correct.
The timeline is kind of murky, and so you know, if it's a decade away, it could be a decade of on-street publicly accessible parking that isn't provided for what I'm looking at, a reason that's not quite clear to me. It's like we're removing it because we have some plans in the future that there will be bike lanes, and that they will be a part of an expansive network of bike lanes on El Camino. But we're a long way from there, and so it's not clear to me what the clear value add of removing the parking even on the east side at this point. And so anyway, I'm getting away from a question and into comments, so I'm going to pause there. Thank you for answering that. And I do have comments. I'm happy to reserve them until all the questions are exhausted. I can share them now, whatever works. Okay, totally fair. Thanks. Again, I do think first of all, I just to give staff some sense of where I'm looking at this broadly, it is that, like, if we are removing something that is, you know, something that the public has come to rely on, could be considered a public benefit, and I do consider on-street public parking something that the city provides, then I think we can have a discussion about that being removed. But I want to see what's the value that, because I do think that a parking spot has value. An on-street public parking spot, I think does have value. I mean, a lot of us wish we were Copenhagen. Maybe I wish we were Copenhagen, but we're not. You know, we are a suburban community on the San Francisco Peninsula. And the primary way, or a major way, lots of people get around is via the automobile. And so, and I do think it becomes an issue of allowing people to access, all parts of the city. And so again, I'm totally fine with having a discussion about removing parking, but I really do want to get away from this idea that removing parking is in and of itself some virtue, and that we should give ourselves a pat on the back just for doing that. I think it's valid to have a discussion about removing parking when there is an exchange of value of something to the city and to the residents, but I'm not supportive of this idea of let's just remove parking to make ourselves feel better, and that's what it looks like to me, or that there is an agenda here that gets accomplished, and not one that I think services at this moment the residents of Menlo Park. So in my thinking, again, I'm supportive of the option that allows for some separation of bollards or whatever, but one that allows for the retention of on-street parking on the west side where we've had the discussion. And again, I would say on the east side, because no one has made a clear argument to me, the value that comes with removing parking on the east side. And 10 years from now, or 6 years from now, or 7 years from now, the possibility that there may be bike lanes is not valued today. And so I can't in good faith argue that we should remove parking, because at this moment it's a public asset or something that could be provide value to the public. And again, I was on the bike commission for some years. I'm supportive of building out the city's bike infrastructure, but I do think we have to be clear about what's the benefit beyond just sort of feeling good, or beyond just sort of saying that like, oh, we're trying to be Copenhagen. Again, when we're in a community where still a lot of people get around, by car. And when I do see, I want to be frank, the people who do utilize bikes, it's in a lot of cases, especially among adults, it's because they have certain luxuries and privileges that allow them to build that into their schedule, that have a certain control over their schedule that allows them to bike around. But that's not available to everyone in this community or everyone who accesses this community. And so I do think we need to be like completely, transparent about that. And again, when I go to my times on the bike commission, when I saw a lot of what was advocating it was, people at a certain socioeconomic level who liked this idea and had a certain control over their day and their schedule, that other people, not everyone in the community had. And so I really do, again, I'm supportive of a transition. I'm supportive of additions to our bike infrastructure, but I'm not supportive of this idea of let's just feel good by doing things that we think hinder sort of the automobile infrastructure. And so, that's where I'm at this moment. I see this as being a collision of all of those things that I've seen a lot. That this let's just act in some way that seems to hinder or hurt the automobile infrastructure, even though there's not any sort of real exchange or value at that moment in time. And so again, wanted to express my broader thoughts beyond this project, but that's what's at the foundation of how I've approached this issue. So again, supportive of the option that retains parking on the west side, and also the east side, because no argument has been made to me of why they should be removed. And at some later date, I think it is great for the community to have a discussion about the bike infrastructure on El Camino. like, right? And to, at that moment, have a real option and not have this drip, drip, drip of taking things away and then creating a faux option later on.
Councilmember Willison.
Thank you. And I also want to thank all of the speakers who spoke tonight. And this is a tricky one. I wanted to thank staff for bringing forward the original recommendation that aligned with our stated values of complete streets and Vision Zero, and having safety for all modes, and really recognize kind of how safety is the driving factor of the staff recommendations with the pedestrian refuge, what Mr. Louch was just saying about the new turn movement coming out of Middle Plaza, and really delineating where those cars can go so vehicles can be safer. And in terms of bikes, Ms. Baruzzi mentioned collision data, and I was also looking at the transportation master plan and kind of the heat map of where the collisions are taking place. And the reality is that people are biking on El Camino today. And a lot of the people biking on El Camino, I don't want to make assumptions, but it looks like some people are biking on El Camino because that's their primary mode of transportation, getting to work. And yes, I want protected bike lanes. And I want to take a moment here. For those of you who don't know me or know my story, I started getting involved in local government for safe routes to school because of my kids. And when I first got started, the thought of encouraging anyone to have bike lanes that were not protected and separated on El Camino was crazy to me because of the speed and the volume. And as I mentioned, I'm still hoping and hopeful and will advocate for protected bike lanes on El Camino. That being said, having been a safe routes advocate now for 6 years, incremental change is better than no change. And while I might not send my kids biking down El Camino with a non-separated protected bike lane, there are people whose journey will be enhanced because they're already doing it, but they're in conflict with cars now. And so while the end goal for me, and if my colleagues want to start planning out that discussion about protected bike lanes and how we're going to do it, and probably remove a travel lane and all those conversations, while that's a extremely worthy project that I'm totally game for taking on, vis-a-vis all of our other projects and priorities, I don't see that happening in the immediate future. And so then the question for me becomes, well, what about the people now? And what's interesting is at our last meeting, I believe one of our council members talked about how he's biked on El Camino on the east side in front of the Stanford project. And that's terrifying. And so in terms of the benefit now of removing parking in front of the Stanford project, when Middle Plaza is occupied, I would assume that there's going to be people coming going to Palo Alto and wanting to return home on El Camino, going to the Palo Alto train station, being at Stanford. To me, there's huge reasons why we would want to keep that space for multiple modes of transportation, especially since no one's there now. I mean, I would even go so far in the motion, if there was support, and not just, since we're taking potentially, depending on how this all goes, removing the parking now, to just striping it green now. So there's that space, because again, people are already going to be using it. I am also concerned about the option 2B, because it involves more staff time and losing the opportunity of Stanford doing this with their project. So for those of us who are worried about, the ability to complete other projects and have resources and capacity to do other things, adding an additional part of work on this to me, it just seems, I don't see the benefit of that. I think it's painful to remove parking because people do get used to it, but I don't think it's ever going to be easy. And this is before us now. I also think we have really been thoughtful about mitigating the impact with the College Avenue parking. I would like to reintroduce the suggestion of going and taking 2 additional spots on College and moving the residential parking permit start point by 2 spots so that there's a little more room for, I believe there's like a UPS truck that comes every once in a while that might need some more space. But to stop talking, I'm in favor of moving forward with this original staff recommendation and of the College Avenue modifications with the 2 extra spots. And if there's an appetite to green stripe at least, I know this is a step further, but since the space would be there, the east side now, so that people trying to get from the train station and from Palo Alto to the new Middle Plaza have that ready to go. Thanks.
Thank you. So I will, I'd like to respond to a couple of the comments and then I'll go to Councilmember Taylor. So first of all, bikes on El Camino, I believe is not an issue of privilege. There are people who are using the El Camino to bike to work. There is a gentleman who works at Trader Joe's who bikes to work from Mountain View and on El Camino every day. I honestly have not spoken with him since the pandemic, but I know pre-pandemic he spent years biking on El Camino. I believe that there are numerous people who do not own cars and must use a bike for work. And so there definitely are others, but it is not just privileged individuals who ride bikes, especially on El Camino. Also, Middle Plaza is trying to, Stanford has very strict restrictions on cars on campus and driving, and they do everything possible to keep cars out because they have a very strict count. And if they exceed it, they are fined. So they are trying to keep people walking and biking. There will be more people walking and biking on El Camino as soon as Stanford, the project is open, because that is what they're encouraging their folks to do. They're encouraging them to use Middle Avenue, but there definitely will be people who are additional people who will be walking and biking on El Camino. So the more we can do to make it comfortable and safe, that is good. Regarding more people, once Stanford opens up, the stores around, including on that block, will have an additional 215 customers from 215 apartments and from over 100,000 square feet of commercial, which has already been rented. And there will be many employees, there will be many new residents living right across the street from these businesses. So while I definitely hear and am concerned about them losing their current clientele who are very dear to them, the viability of their business, I don't believe is going to be in question. They will have new customers. And then my concern about, and then the removal of the parking is, and please, Mr. Louch, if I'm stating this incorrectly, please do correct me. But the removal of the parking is actually to facilitate a 2-foot median there, which is a safety issue. And it is not, we are not removing parking specifically to enable bike lanes, which or future bike lanes. It is to enable the median, placing in a median. And on that point, there is a cost, and I would love to know what is the cost if the city becomes responsible for putting in the median. What is an approximate amount of money that the city will be paying rather than something that I believe was going to be covered by Stanford if we delay putting in a median? Mr. Lauch.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nash. So I can confirm that the median as planned would have been constructed or would be constructed by Stanford. And that, yes, if it comes back and they advance, gets advanced without the median, that would come back to us. We don't have a precise cost estimate to that. And it depends a little bit about what the option ends up looking like. Are we putting in that same median in some future time? Or are we putting in that median we're putting in sort of revised version of a median that looks a little different, like maybe the example I showed you. So the example I showed you, maybe is we did a little bit of conversation about this internally. And so, and again, I won't be held to this number because it's not a quote that we have for a cost estimate, but let's say that's around 20 grand to do the work that's needed. And then there would also be, I think, as was mentioned, staff time associated with doing the kind of research and design work that's needed to figure out what would work, getting approval from Caltrans and one thing and another.
Thank you. So that the amount of money for the median, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars?
Yeah, so low tens of thousands of dollars probably to build the median.
But tens of thousands, not even hundreds of thousands. Okay, thank you. So really the issue is staff time. And so what projects are we talking about that might be delayed?
So we haven't had a specific conversation, and I might look to a city manager here for some commentary on this as well. I think this type of work is the type of work that, it's a small project from a transportation division standpoint. What it would do is probably defer or delay the ability to respond to some of the sort of ongoing types of questions and issues that come up, or we might have to pull somebody off of working on, and extend the time for one of our other ongoing projects, is how I would think about it. But we haven't had a specific conversation about, is there a project that we would sort of asked to put on the back burner at this time? But that's something that if that's the direction we get, we'll sit down and talk as a division and as in Public Works and figure out how to best staff all the things that need to happen.
Do you have any, can you give us any clue as to what sort of staff time impact this is? The reason why I'm asking very honestly is I'm surprised that the number of dollars that you gave me was much lower than I had anticipated. So I'm wondering if perhaps I'm overestimating the staff time also.
Yeah, so sometimes the smallest projects take as long as some of the bigger ones. Anytime that we have to sort of coordinate with Caltrans, it takes a while. If it's just something that we're designing and building ourselves, we can do that pretty on city streets, like a small median, we can do that somewhat quickly and efficiently. But the real time for this is the time to do the permitting process, get the approvals from Caltrans, go through that process. It takes quite a bit longer than when we're just working on city streets. So I do think not that we would cost out the staff time per se, but if you think about the relative impact, it's much more on the staff time than on especially if we're talking about, upgrading the posts is the primary objective of what we're doing. The cost isn't necessarily as much as the work that we have to do with Caltrans.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor, do you have comments on this, please.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. I am actually surprised about the dollar amount. I thought it was a lot higher, which is causing me to rethink.
Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, I'll chime in while Councilmember Taylor is rethinking. What I did want to say is that, again, I have respect my colleague's position and have no doubt that there is some people who commute into work on bikes who are in service sector roles. My understanding was that most of the service sector roles in Menlo Park were being occupied by people who actually lived far away, because that's the only place they could afford something. And that's one of the reasons why there's been a lot of talk about the need for additional affordable housing. And so I do think that, and again, I just respect that we disagree, that it does become an issue of privilege. But what I will say is that I want to very much say that I'm in that population of privileged. For the entirety, except for like 7 months of my time in Menlo Park, my family has been a one-car household. And right now we're a one-car household. But I know that we are able to do that, and I bike lots of places, is because there are certain ways in which we could, we could construct our lives to make that possible. Whether it is that like we could afford to live here, like and close by, whether it is that we could do, in-home childcare, like, right, those were all things that we could do that allowed that to be a reality. And so I just want to say that, like, I want to be clear when I talk about, I think it's a privilege. I'm not saying others, I'm including myself in that population of someone who, and so when I, talk about my family, having one car for essentially a decade or a decade in Menlo Park, and me being able to commute a lot of places on bike, I see that as a reflection of my privilege. But I know that someone who is commuting into Menlo Park in a service sector job from far away does not have the ability to construct their lives in a way that would allow them to have a family of 4 and with young kids and have just one car. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. And my position is, my concern has always been with pedestrians first. I know that usually we say bike ped. I think ped bike. And I can be supportive of any improvements to crosswalks, any items that are related to bikes right now. If there isn't a consensus, at least maybe we can move forward with improvements, the extension of the crosswalk. Thank you.
Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, I'm willing to, I like Councilmember Taylor, want to move forward with the sidewalk. I think I'm fine with taking away parking on the east side. I offered to Councilmember Combs that Stanford's the tenant there, the landowner, and they've expressed that they're okay with it. To my colleague, Vice Mayor Wilson, I did try to travel from Palo Alto into Menlo Park on bike onto El Camino. I did it one time and I moved onto the sidewalk. I could not do it, did not feel safe doing it. And that partially affects a little bit more. My big concern is for pedestrians, and that if we remove parking on both sides of the street, that is a big, wide, giant thoroughfare with no cars or anything that a car would even think about looking at, potentially being concerned about a car door opening. And I do worry about the speeds that cars, when they see a big wide open road like that in a green light that turns yellow, perhaps late, what they're going to do. So when you combine that with the fact that maybe we can when you combine that, that we could potentially get to protected bike lanes someday, and then that I do think that the dollar amount here is small enough that the actually dollar amount of the parking space is probably worth more to those businesses. So I'm fine with 2B for now. I do want to try to move to 5. I know it may be difficult, but I would like to eventually try to figure out how to get there. But 2B for now to get parking done, and there, even with the bollards there's going to be, that's a safety improvement in the center. And so I'm fine with that. Remove parking east side, keep parking west side. Thank you.
Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, I'll say I'm not necessarily persuaded by Councilmember Mueller's argument in favor of moving parking on the east side. But if there is consensus there that also retains parking on the west side, I would be supportive of that motion.
Director Lausch, could you please put up the slide that gives us the options, the council actions?
You can see my screen.
Yes. So I'm wondering if you're looking for us choosing an option. There was also the council actions, slide 8.
Sorry, I meant to stop on the council action slide.
Thank you.
And if I can, through the mayor, to make a just quick revision, just to be really clear, because we realize it may not have come across as clearly. The cost estimate I was really giving you was for this 2B option, so something where there might be some raised posts and maybe a small median, not for the full median that is option 1. So that would cost, more, and we haven't done a separate specific cost. So if we were talking about not doing the median now, and what that median would cost, that would cost more. So, but if we were trying to do something like an enhanced version of no median, which is what 2B is, that's sort of roughly what that, 20 grand is what we think that would cost, plus the staff time to put that together and get it approved.
Thank you. So do you have, I know you just said you didn't, but can you give us any sort of general figure? Are we talking hundreds of thousands, millions, several millions? What are we talking about to actually, if we choose just the 2B at this point, but then later want to go back and install a median? The median, I'm assuming right now, would have been installed by Stanford. And so it then becomes city responsibility. What sort of dollar figure are we speaking about?
Yeah, so we don't have a specific cost for that. Not millions, though, I'll tell you. Medians are, it's basically going to be the price of the concrete and the work to install it. So that's not, for I think we'd have to measure how long that median is. It's quite long, in fact. So, but there's sort of a basic cost per square foot that we'd be paying for that. But I'm going to guess it's less than 100,000 or around 100,000 maybe, but that's very much a guess that I probably shouldn't be making right now. So if any of my colleagues who are listening and have a more kind of precise calculation based on the actual square footage, we could get you a sort of order of magnitude cost for that in a minute, probably.
And then one other question about staffing, if you can answer it, is since this is an issue with crosswalks, is it the same staff that are dealing with crosswalks and other safety enhancements around the city that will be delayed, so that other projects will be delayed that have to do with crosswalks and pedestrian and bike safety? Or what sorts of, just can you give us any idea of
Sure. Yeah, I think in terms of the way I think of that question is like, what's the relevant expertise that the individuals need who would do this work? Probably the most significant expertise that's needed is the working with Caltrans expertise. So that would tend to be some of our more senior folks who work on a lot of different types of things. It would really be about, we'd really have to have a discussion about, if we were doing this now, and just to be clear about that, it's, I think we're assuming that if we're trying to do option 2B, the question kind of comes back to council about where this fits among, relative to all the other priorities that we might have. The way we framed it in the staff report, because we were bringing this back so quickly, was that we would potentially come back at a future date to have that conversation, just because we didn't have time, since last week to put together an exact, this would be what our staffing would be for that. So we're happy to think about that more and come up with a plan, but I'm a little bit reluctant to do so, and I apologize while we're in the meeting tonight.
Actually, I'm going to go for one more minute, and that's my concern is in the staff report, it looked like we were trying to do this. Well, first of all, I'm very impressed that you were able to get this back on the agenda. Thank you so much for the quick turnaround and being able to get it in front of us while it's all still fresh in our, the conversation is fresh, and to be able to try and hit the Stanford schedule. In the staff report, it said that there would be an attempt to try and work quickly with Caltrans, I believe, on 2B to see whether it could still be included as part of the Stanford project, which to me means, if I read that correctly, that the project was you were going to try and do a quick turnaround to see what could be done on 2B. If that were chosen, does that mean there will be delays on other crosswalks? Obviously, there's a strong desire to get the crosswalks that you're working on at Ravenswood, at El Camino, and then there's others at Middlefield that I know are being discussed, and then the one at Willow and Newbridge, which has been very, very critical crosswalk that we've been waiting a long time for, and I know you're working on. So I'm wondering if those are the projects that are going to be delayed, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I can say that, for the Willow and Newbridge crosswalk specifically, that has been and coming through the Bellhaven traffic calming plan work, and we are working on a submittal to Caltrans now. That's very much in process, so I don't anticipate that delayed. Maybe I can go back to the kind of assumption underlying what you said, and if we misstated this in the staff report, I apologize. The way that we see this as staff is that right now, if Stanford is doing it, they're either doing it with the median or they're not doing the median. Then staff would come back and potentially look at enhancements to the median, and that would be purely staff. I think just given their schedule and the reality of, like, even if we wanted to do those enhancements, it is not a quick process to get Caltrans to approve a revised design. It's not something that we can do in days or weeks. To be honest, it's more of a months long affair. So it just doesn't fit with their schedule. So we would come back as staff. And so we would need a little bit of time to do the work and design it. But I wouldn't I wouldn't recommend putting it in front of stuff that's well in process. So it might be that this work gets done and then we come back in some number of months and do this enhancement. It wouldn't necessarily have to happen immediately anyway. We might want it to happen quickly. Obviously, we want to associate it with when there are going to be more people crossing and one thing and another. But we have some flexibility within that to figure out how we best fit that into our workload. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Yes. Councilmember or Vice Mayor Willison. All right. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, thanks. So I do think with all respect to staff, I do have concerns that we went to Caltrans and got approval for something that had not been approved by council, had not been specifically approved. And it seems like at this moment, then it's seeming to be used to shoehorn at least one particular direction. I don't know who made that decision, but that should be looked into. And I don't think we should have a situation again where a project is coming to us and we're told that another agency approved it, and that then should alter what we think is the best decision at this moment. So I do think that should be looked at too, because that is incredibly problematic. Secondly, I'd like to make a motion. And so my motion would be that remove parking on the east side of El Camino in front of Middle Plaza and Stanford Hotel, 67 spaces, of which we all know I have concerns about, but that's in my motion. It would be to have staff proceed in the direction of doing the crosswalk and the necessary striping, and who didn't come back to us with some sort of enhanced, not meeting bollard, maybe circular sort of median at a later date. And so that would be my motion.
Councilmember Willis, Councilmember Mueller, please.
Yeah, I'll second it. To be clear, that's retaining parking on the west side in front of the merchants.
Yeah, that retains parking on the west side.
Do you want to include converting parking on the first block of College Avenue to 1 hour parking?
I mean, at this point, I mean, that was about removing parking on El Camino. I'm not opposed to that, but then I also don't know the extent to which is needed if parking on El Camino is being retained on the west side. If the idea is that we want to do that now because in 5 years we're going to take away this parking for bike lanes and that's already done, then that's fine too. And so if there is a desire for you to have that and add that, I'm more than happy to add it.
I actually would like to have it because speaking with the businesses there, there's an issue with long-term parking there currently, and it would give them some more parking.
That's fine with me. Through the mayor, Mr. Interim City Manager, you look like you may have a question, and if you don't have a question for me, that's fine. But
through the mayor, thank you, Councilmember Combs. You're seeing that I need reading glasses, but sorry about that. What I was doing was trying to read the staff report to make sure that once a motion is solidified, I can attempt to assist with my colleagues to make sure it's reflected appropriately in a resolution. So at that appropriate time before the council wraps up, I would appreciate an opportunity to check in on that.
Thanks. And I just add to the city clerk, I'm comfortable with the friendly amendment from the mayor.
I'm comfortable seconding it if it secures her support.
City Clerk Heron, could you please state the motion and call for the vote?
I can sure try. Here we go. I have a motion by City Council Member Combs and a second by City Council Mueller to remove parking on the east side of El Camino in front of Middle Plaza and Stanford Park Hotel, 67 spaces, implement 1 hour time limit parking between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, except holidays on the south side of College Avenue from El Camino to approximately 160 feet westerly. Modify the El Camino Real and Middle Avenue intersection to add a crosswalk on the south leg and direct staff to return with median options. Is there any further city council question or discussion?
Vice Mayor Willison.
Thank you. I'll be voting no on this motion. I am very concerned about the folks moving into, both the residents and the employees moving into Middle Plaza and trying to cross this new leg of traffic. I'm also very concerned with adding more to staff's plate and having them investigate this new Caltrans request. I think it's going to impact projects including Newbridge and Willow, which is also a Caltrans discussion. And I think that we have an El Camino Real study, we have a transportation master plan, we have certain things that we've put out to our community before, and that this action to me seems to be either delaying those or contradicting those. So I'll be voting no, but I understand that sometimes the votes just go that way. So thanks.
I actually would like to agree with your comment and add that in addition, I believe that it is a safety feature to have a concrete median separating the north and southbound lanes of El Camino as people turn left. And I've also seen drivers go through the bollards. So if we do, I hope that the median choice, if it is not cement, it does preclude people driving in between the bollards. Thank you.
I mean, just a clarified question, totally respect those positions. Did Mr. Louch say that there was going to be some delay in impact when it comes to the Willow Newbridge project? I thought he said that there wasn't going to be. So I just want for the record to state that he said that there in fact was not going to be any delaying effect regarding that project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I speak?
Please.
Yeah, I also heard Mr. Louch say that there wasn't going to be any delay.
Okay, I apologize if I misheard that.
And my understanding was candidly that he said there wasn't going to be delay to any of the projects, that they would just go ahead and come back to us and prioritize those first, but he would ask us to prioritize at a future time. And so that there's not necessarily going to be a delay. And responding also to the comment about the bollards and going through them, well, cars also jump curbs, medians. I've seen that too. It's not going to be that high of a median, and it's only 2 feet wide. So if someone wants to go through something, they're going through it. I think this really just comes down to candidly whether or not you want to maintain, whether or not you want to keep parking in front of those merchants right now or not. Because I think we can achieve a separation, and frankly, even a bollard, which is actually higher in space than the median. And I think we can. I don't think there is any delay to other projects. It's just a question of how fast we prioritize it.
I would actually like to ask whether we could have a staff clarification on any delays. It seems to me that if there's, well, Assistant Public Works Director Louch, please.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. Yes, so just to be clear, I think what I was trying to say is that there would be a delay if we prioritize this ahead of other project work that staff is doing. It will delay that other project work, but that it would not necessarily need to delay the Willow Newbridge work, which is sort of imminently going to be submitted to Caltrans for their approval. And as I mentioned, that will still take quite a bit of time, that project specifically, but so it doesn't necessarily, I realize that's a sort of middling answer, if you will, but something will be delayed if this comes first. It's just not clear we haven't sort of worked out yet what exactly that would be over the last week.
Thank you. I will refrain from. Oh, Councilmember Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So my follow-up question for Mr. Louch is, so what do we need to do so that nothing is delayed? Because I don't want, it doesn't sound like to me that for sure the Willow Newbridge or any other area that needs Caltrans approval will not be delayed.
I guess what I would say is we're going to take direction on what should be priorities, and how this should fit in with other priorities that we'd be working on as staff. The simplest thing, if you want nothing delayed, is to have Stanford build the median, because they're already conditioned to do that, and they would be doing that anyway. But barring that, if you prefer to go in the direction of not building the median now, I think it just to give clear direction to staff where this sort of fits, and certainly it's a conversation that we can have in the future. And I apologize that I don't have more specifics today. There are many things that we work on as staff, some of which are larger projects and some of which are much smaller, and it's the smaller stuff that generally has to be delayed. So when a request comes in to make upgrades to one part of infrastructure or another, and those come in all the time, those are the things that we get to as quickly as we can. And when something like this comes in, it's that's how I view it, as sort of jumping those queue of requests, because it's coming from the city council. And so that's something probably where it would fit, and we would fit it in with the other things that we do. But for projects that are ongoing, like the Bellhaven traffic calming plan, that's a more substantial project, has a lot of components, of which Willow New Bridge is just one, is in the midst of a lot of work to implement it based on what was approved by council last year. So we feel like we already have very clear direction on what we're supposed to be doing there, and it's more the little stuff that then maybe has to get pushed back potentially, or maybe the restarting of other projects that have been on the consideration for restarting later, but less the stuff that's sort of active now.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification, and then also the time that you put into the work that you've done just since our last council meeting. And I know that we are in the middle of a motion. And so in that motion, the median is included or it's not included? Not sure if that's
the motion. A concrete median is not included. And what is asked for is that staff comes back to council with suggested median options.
okay. Thank you, Mayor Nash. I am supportive of an option that does not require the staff to come back to us, so that we can move forward with this, since it is time sensitive. And yes, we'd like Stanford to make improvements as was agreed. And the motion that is on the floor, will require the staff to come back, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But if I can just chime in, Councilmember Taylor, do you have a substantive position on the removing of parking for the businesses? Because I think the issue is less about staff coming back or not. Is it okay that we remove the parking? And that's totally fine if that's where you are. But I think that those businesses owe from each member of this council to say that, hey, I'm fine with that parking being removed, and to not say that this is an issue about staff having to come back or not.
Thank you, Councilmember Combs. So my concerns are with pedestrian safety first. I am concerned about the number of parking spaces that are being removed. I am an advocate of our existing residents and businesses. I am concerned about what our future residents will have to experience in businesses. And so, and what's the happy median is where I'm trying to get to. No pun intended, but I am trying to get to that place so we don't have to bring this item back. And right now, I honestly am trying to still figure that piece out. What is it? The striping for crosswalks is easy. The median is the reason why the parking has to be removed. And does it have to be both sides, both east and west?
I'll just say again, Councilmember, respect whatever decision you come to, like, right?
Right.
And I would just say, I don't know that there is a median, a middle ground where this doesn't come back. I think the middle ground is that it comes back in that we look at something that's a smaller sort of less intrusive separation of traffic. So I just want to say, again, we're all entitled to our votes and our opinions, but I don't know that there is this is a split the baby situation. Because if we're either coming back or we're not. And so if we're not coming back, it's because we're going with the median. Stanford builds it and we remove the parking. That's as I understand it. Someone can correct me if my analysis is not accurate.
So I believe we would not be coming back if we accept staff's recommendation, which includes removing the parking in front of the businesses. I would just like to say, as the businesses are in my district, I am a frequent customer of Namesake Cheesecake. It is the best cheesecake around. Everyone should try it. And Sharif, the owner, is fabulous and a wonderful person. I also regularly frequent Menlo Velo. Rainier, I have not yet gotten my hair cut at the new place. Those are the three shops that are, I believe, do not have a parking lot next door. The UPS store has a parking lot in back. The dessert shop on the corner has a parking lot in back. So Menlo Velo at this point does not have their front entrance on El Camino is not open. They route people to the back door. They in fact have closed their front entrance. So we're really talking about two businesses, Namesake Cheesecake and the new salon, both of which I do very much care about. But I believe that there will be parking if we make 1 hour parking. There will be parking around on College. And I think that the safety of everyone is paramount. And so you wanted people to state about whether they agree with parking. I mean, removing the parking. I believe that for the greater good, we should remove the parking. I personally will be talking with the businesses there regularly and seeing how they are doing and what we can do to support them. But I am voting for removing the parking there. Vice Mayor Willison.
I just had a point. I don't know if it's a point of order or a question about motions. I guess it's for the city attorney. Is it possible to put forward a substitute motion at this time? Or
Yes,
should we
yeah.
vote on the motion on the floor?
Either choice is an option, but there can be a substitute motion that if it obtains a second, that motion would take precedence over the main motion, and then you would vote on the substitute motion first. And if it passes, the main motion goes away. If it doesn't pass, you go back to the main motion.
You're looking at me. I will say I am not going to support a substitute motion. I believe that we should vote on the first motion, and if that does not pass, then we will see if there's another motion. But
That's why I was looking at you.
Okay, I would like to the courtesy of voting for the both motions. And I guess just to clarify, I'm sorry, I spoke for a while and I don't know if I covered this at first. The way to not have it come back is to remove the parking, is the council actions, which was remove parking on the east side, remove parking on the west side, and convert the first block of parking on College to 1 hour parking. And that would mean that it would not come back. Is that correct?
is the question to staff or?
Yes, thank you.
Well, I believe I would look to Mr. Louch as well, but there's the two, in terms of the various options, which is different than alternatives, which is different than kind of the first part of the motion, but there's the three various options. Option 1, 2A, and 2B. So I think option 1 and 2A would not need to come back to staff. I think it's option 2B that I think enters the realm of staff spending time on it.
Yeah, and so I just want to be clear, and I tell staff, so you know, I can alter my motion just to go with 2A. I mean, like I said 2B as which means the crosswalk and sort of new striping, right? And that doesn't have to come back, right? I offer the 2B as an olive branch to my colleagues who think that there should be a median and the parking removed. And so, but then if the issue is it something coming back or not, then I would just, you know, augment my motion or change my motion to say, then it doesn't have to come back. Just go with updating the striping and do the crosswalk. And if during some goal setting session, the council has as its priority that it wants to revisit it, then the council can make that decision at that time. And so I would ask to the seconder if that alteration is okay with them.
I think at this point, the question is really one for Councilmember Taylor, out of respect for what she'd take. So Councilmember Taylor would go with 2A. If that means it's not coming back, and then I'd consider it. I would say though to everyone that I do think I just personally do think that 2B is the right thing to do for pedestrian safety and also for all things considered. And to my other two colleagues, I really am not sure that you're not going to make it more dangerous for pedestrians by taking away that street parking there. It's going to be so wide open. I mean, just so incredibly wide open. And that really gives me a lot of pause, because we're going to be inviting kids to cross there. And I know that they're going to be residents living in Stamford and the Stamford parcels, but I can't imagine they're going to decide they want to take El Camino as opposed to go up middle and take the bike bridge, which is so much safer. And frankly, which I think we should want them to do. And I think when I think about this, I think about someplace else where there really isn't a lot of street parking and it's wide open, and that's frankly in Atherton, where the one side of the street is basically, you know, not accessible. It's just ivy walls, and that's where people have been killed trying to cross El Camino because it's just wide open and straight. So I'm not super, for pedestrian safety there, I actually like the cars being there to narrow the roadway a bit, because we're really opening it up. So for pedestrian, you know, for those people crossing, I just think 2B is the best option. But if Councilmember Taylor doesn't want it to come back, and that would mean 2A going onto the table, I'd be willing to consider that to your question, Councilmember Combs.
I'd actually like professional staff, please, to weigh in about the safety issues that were just raised.
So I guess thanks for that. I don't want to necessarily speak to the conditions and after things. I'm not necessarily super familiar with them, but I do know that Atherton doesn't generally have sidewalks along their El Camino Street frontage. So that's another factor that I think contributes to some of the challenges that they have. You know, and then in terms of the cars and do they provide, I think the sort of, do they provide some kind of barrier? So on the east side of the street, there is a landscaped median that provides a barrier essentially and separation from the travel lanes that will exist, once the
I'm
easement is
sorry,
constructed.
Mr. Louch, you
Yeah,
seem
sorry.
to not understand my comment. My comment related to people crossing the street.
Oh, I see.
As opposed to, and it being so wide open. So this, because I think it's an accepted concept that when it's wide open and there is nothing on the street level, that speeds tend to increase as opposed to the narrowing of lanes.
Yeah. So the other thing there is that the condition at the crosswalk, it won't change essentially in any of the options, because at the there's a gas station driveway right there, so there's no parking, at the intersection. And then typically we do try to remove parking often from the edges of intersections for visibility purposes, because they can make it difficult for pedestrians to be seen. I don't think that we would see any safety protection specifically from parked vehicles at the crosswalk.
So you don't think that you don't think a car approaching the intersection that could see a car parked within on the other side of the driveway, that wouldn't affect something that they would potentially be coming upon pretty quickly at El Camino speeds?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're into a very detailed level of conversation about something that ultimately, is partly a human behavior question, and how do people respond to kind of the stimuli in the environment that they experience. So I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that everybody responds in the same way, and all behavior is the same. I think you get a sort of range of behavior there, but I would just say that on both sides of that intersection, there isn't parking now until you get a little ways in past the driveway. You also have a lot of travel movement in and out of the driveway, and I think that safety, or that concern of people sort of moving in and out of the driveway is probably the one that I'd be more concerned about from a pedestrian crossing standpoint than the removal of parking.
Councilmember Taylor.
Mayor Nash, I forgot my hand was up. I do not have a question or comment.
Thank you. City Clerk Karen, would you please call for a vote?
Thank you. So we are still on our initial motion, which was made by City Council Member Combs with a second by City Council Member Mueller, to remove parking on the east side of El Camino Real in front of Middle Avenue and Stanford Park Hotel. Implement 1 hour time limit parking between 9 a.m. 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, except holidays, on the south side of College Avenue from El Camino Real to approximately 160 feet westerly. Modify El Camino Real and Middle Avenue intersection to add a crosswalk on the south leg, and direct staff to return with median options. By roll.
Actually, can I ask one quick question? Did we want to add 2 parking places on College? Or not at this point?
I'm going to be voting no on the motion. So if you
Okay.
want to see if.
All right. Let's keep the motion as is, please.
Thank you. So by roll call vote, City Council Member Combs,
Yes.
City Council Member Mueller,
Yes.
City Council Member Taylor,
No.
Vice Mayor Willison,
No.
and Mayor Nash.
No.
And the motion fails with City Council Members Taylor, Vice Mayor Willison, and Mayor Nash dissenting.
Vice Mayor Willison.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this original staff recommendation of the 2-foot median to remove parking on the east side of the street, and to change the restrictions on College Avenue And I'm adding to take 2 more spots from the residential parking and convert that to the 1-hour parking as well to provide additional parking.
I will second the motion.
Give me just one moment.
City Clerk Karen, would you mind calling for a vote, please?
Yes. Give me just
Excuse me,
one
excuse me,
moment.
Mayor. There's just
Yes.
one clarification. I wouldn't mind other staff and city attorney weighing in on, but I believe the change to the 2 on College, I'm not sure that was noticed because that's a change to an existing permitting system.
I guess
so-
to direct staff to look into
great.
modifying. Thank you.
Agree.
So am I, just so I understand, this is essentially the same thing we voted no on last. This is the exact same vote. And so is that proper?
There was no motion for reconsideration.
Excuse me, through the mayor. I mean, we just conferred a little bit, and we're not sure if, although there was a vote, right? So the last time, but did you continue the item for further consideration to tonight? And that sounds more like the whole item was continued as opposed to ended at that point. But I wasn't here at that night, so I'm not sure what was intended.
What
by the
we
council.
voted, this motion is what we voted no on, what lost.
Well, there's a slight change to it, is there not, with the study issue, but it is, I mean, essentially it's the staff recommendation, correct? So
Yeah, that lost 3-2 last time, and now we're voting on it again. One council meeting later, and looks like it's headed in a different direction. And so to me, I have integrity issues.
I mean,
have
I think
integrity concerns.
what you're concerned about is whether or not it's a reconsideration of a prior action by the council. But since the item was continued, I think the council can vote on any of the recommendations that are still.
The item was continued? Who said it was continued?
Well, was it renoticed and brought back for further consideration at this meeting? I mean,
Yeah, so it wasn't continued though. This is, so the item had a vote, a clear determinative vote at that moment. And so now we're reconsidering it again.
well, I mean, I'm just asking the question.
It did have a new staff report,
Okay.
if that helps.
I dropped the query. I just want to make for the public record, the public know that I have concerns about having an agenda item lose 3-2 in a council meeting, and then the very next council meeting it comes back, and it may have a different outcome. And so I think if there is a vote that is determinative of that different outcome, I think the public owes a clear explanation for what the change in that vote was. Or I do think that there are serious issues of integrity about this process and about this agenda item.
I think the council members voting are free to make a statement about their intention and if somebody changed their vote, why they changed their vote, but they don't have to say that, but they can. I mean, it's a request on your part.
It is fair though, Mr. City Attorney, that a motion for consideration would usually require a noticed motion with a basis for consideration for the council to consider. And then that meeting, and then that would be noticed first, and then the actual vote would take place. And so in this case, there was discussion, and candidly, I did say at the meeting, look, if you come back to it, I asked for a good faith investigation into what I was asking for with respect to the protected lanes. But I also was shocked that we were looking at this again in this fashion in a time period faster than we even hear a motion for consideration. So I understand my colleague's concern, and it certainly was not continued that night. We had a vote, and I didn't expect we would see this. We would hear about any good faith investigation about the potential to do a protected bike lane for some time. So I think there is some merit to the concern about what's happened in the amount of time it happened. But that being said, on the flip side, I'd like to thank the Mayor Nash for allowing the vote on the item, because I do support putting a sidewalk in here. I do think the sidewalk is necessary. I just don't support removing the parking at this time, and I don't think removing the parking is necessary. I think we could achieve the safety enhancement in 2B, and I think the fact that staff said that they had time in order to do that, bring 2B back, it wasn't an immediate urgency, sort of underlies the safety requirement at this, because if it was that urgent of a safety item, we wouldn't be hearing from staff that they had time to bring it back at a later date. They'd be wanting to do it immediately.
Let's see, I can at least speak to one aspect regarding the timing, because I was a person that spoke at the last meeting about some of the challenges of bringing it back. The new information that came to light to me was the time frame for which Stanford was actually starting construction on the median. So that was new information to me that I felt was compelling to bring this back on the agenda. The issue about whether it's a reconsideration or not, that's something I'd have to defer to others. But in terms of the time frame of this coming
But
back, on the
Mr.
agenda,
Murphy, in all due respect, the time frame of something that was never approved by council, you're saying, oh, there is now a time limit on a project which council hadn't approved, and that was the impetus for it coming back.
I can
Maybe-
apologize to you for that. And I can go back. You asked for some research about when that decision was made. I'm happy to do that research. But that was raised at last week's meeting. That was stated by Councilmember Mueller. We've already started talking about how we can correct processes going forward. So we've heard that. I think I also had a conversation with Councilmember Taylor about it, and then you raised it tonight. So that message has been sent. And so I was just explaining why, and I'll take responsibility for it. I was the one that felt it was important to get it on tonight's agenda. So there may be some logistical issues of how things can be voted on or not, but I'll take responsibility for this being on the agenda.
I just want to note that I greatly appreciate all the effort staff has been making and I'm assuming that I'm joined by council on this, that other council members, given the current staffing, given the tremendous number of priorities, demands, just everyday work that the city is doing, and the number of development projects. And I just think that the staff is doing a Herculean effort to keep us running in the way that we are, with our many council meetings, many staff reports, and that I do not want to have any malintent attributed. I think that everyone is doing the best that they can and greatly appreciate that. And I guess with that, I would like to know whether
Well, I have my hand up, Mayor.
I'm sorry, sure. Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, I do appreciate staff's work on this, and I do appreciate City Manager Murphy talking about why he brought it back, and I get it, but I do have concerns about the city attorney saying that it was continued when it wasn't, and these things. This process is just really messy, y'all. It just is. It's messy, but to the effect it's affecting the parking of these businesses, it's fortunately they were here tonight to speak. But I guess I'll leave it at that. This does not feel like proper process, but I think there's been an acknowledgement of that.
And I do want to say that I believe that the city attorney was the interim city, assistant city attorney, thank you, Councilmember Combs, was in fact looking to the dais and looking to us to see whether or not it was continued, and did not receive a clear answer from any of us, as I think we are all somewhat confused by this.
Well, it sounds like Councilmember Mueller is saying it was not continued. The item ended that night, and so it was renoticed and put on the agenda again. So maybe I made an assumption there, but because it's back at such a short time later, but it is back before you as a new item with different options, with 3 options, one of which is apparently the same as you had before, but you have to look at the individual motion that was made. The individual motion that was made is slightly different, I believe, than what was presented at the last meeting, because it adds a study request to look at the parking on College Avenue.
I believe that was in the motion last time, sir.
We certainly discussed it last time. I actually don't know what it ended up in the motion or not, very honestly. And I guess I would just at this point, rather, what is the best path forward?
Well, here's my call tonight, and my opinion is it's a standalone new item. You re-agendized it. It wasn't continued. And so you have the 3 choices before you, or any other choice the council can make a consensus on with regard to this issue that was noticed and part of your agenda.
Thank you.
Can I ask, why was it necessary to note that the study was different and not included last time?
You know what, I think that was, it meant it wasn't the same motion. That was the point that was raised by Councilmember Coombs, and it wasn't the same motion. So I was just clarifying, I think that it wasn't quite.
But if it was exactly the same motion, would that be?
Actually, can we please move on at this point? We still have a closed session with 2 items. If Councilmember Mueller, would you?
I actually do want to know whether or not significant.
I don't, Councilmember Mueller, I don't think it's pertinent to the issue. I think I made the point that it was a newly noticed item. It was not continued. So you had the freedom, you have the freedom as a council to make a decision within the Brown Act as agendized tonight. And you weren't limited to the 3 different alternatives in the staff report, and you could have come up with something else, but now there's a motion before the body to make a decision.
Thank you.
City Clerk Heron, would you please state the motion and call for a vote?
Will do. So I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor Willison and a second by Mayor Nash to adopt a resolution to install no parking zone on the east side of El Camino Real from the southerly driveway of 700 El Camino Real to the Menlo Park Palo Alto city limit. Install no parking zone on the west side of El Camino Real from Middle Avenue to College Avenue. Implement 1-hour time limit parking between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, except holidays on the south side of College Avenue from El Camino Real to approximately 160 feet westerly. Update existing 1-hour time limit parking on the north side of College Avenue from the end of the existing no parking zone to approximately 50 feet westerly to begin at 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, except holidays, and direct staff to modify 2 residential parkings on College Avenue to timed parking. Any further city council question or discussion?
Councilmember Mueller.
I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands raised, by roll call vote, City Council Member Combs,
No.
City Council Member Mueller,
No.
City Council Member Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Willison,
Yes.
Mayor Nash,
Yes.
and the motion passes with City Council members Combe and Mueller dissenting. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, we have the city manager's report.
Mayor Nash, can we do information item real quick?
Absolutely. I'm doing great tonight. Thank you. How did I miss this? Okay. Thank you. Informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the city council in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the city council. Informational items are not action items. However, a city council member, city staff member, or a member of the public may make a request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. City Clerk Karen, do we have any public comments on the informational items?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item I1, City Council agenda topics, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. Final call for public comment on information items I1. Seeing none, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. Are there any city council questions on any of the information items? All right, now we're going on to the city manager's report. And we have interim city manager Justin Murphy.
Yes, good evening. I can provide you with a few updates. One is related to advisory body recruitment is opened. So vacancies and applications are available at menlopark.org/commissions. Second is the IRC is going to hold its first post-map meeting this Thursday, March 10th at 6 p.m. It's going to be virtual only. Draft maps are available at menlopark.org/draft maps. And then the last one is related to the Spring Line project. There's going to be a BMR drawing at the end of this month. There's going to be 20 below market rate housing units in that development, 6 at moderate income, 3 at low income, 2 bedrooms, 11 at low income, 1 bedroom. The important thing is that the deadline for that drawing is March 22nd at 5 p.m. and more information can be found on the House Keys website. But anybody interested in those 20 below market rate units, it'd be good to express that interest before the deadline drawing on March 22nd. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any reports from city council members since the March 1st city council meeting? All right. City Council Member Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. I have a few, actually, just a report out about a few upcoming meetings this week with CCAG, which is this Thursday at 6:30. We're voting on a new chair and vice chair. And also, just looking for my notes, and also there is a ground-based noise meeting also this Thursday as well. Oh, I'm sorry, this Friday at 9 a.m. A ground-based noise with the SFO roundtable. And on February 24th, there was an SBW May meeting, and February 28th, a One Shoreline meeting. And I just have 2 other, and that is just as a report out from the subcommittee for the reimagining policing. I believe all of council received an email from the interim city manager regarding upcoming meetings. District 5 will be March 23rd. District 4, March 30th. District 3, April 13th. District 1, April 27th, because of a vacation of mine, and District 2 would be May 11th. And lastly, did not do this in, I think it was in January, just wanted to thank our police officers just for some recent community engagement, specifically at the Unity Walk. Officer Robert Campos, Officer Bryce Dale, Officer Sean Nissen, Officer Jeremy Ordoni, and Officer Josh Venzone all participated in the Unity Walk. And then recently, a spotting on bike patrol is Officer Fledge, Officer Greaves, and Officer Mazone. And a recent community meeting, Officer Marcial Baron Villa. Just wanted to say thank you. And that's my report out, Mayor Nash.
Thank you very much. You also made me trigger my memory that we have several of us went to, both staff and council members, went to a really exciting event, a wall raising at Gateway Rising, which is a mid-pen development on Willow Road. And it's going to house 140 families in affordable housing. 82 of them are returning from the existing, from the previous development and have been moved to other housing at this point and will be moving back into the complex. And there will be 58 new families joining our Menlo Park community. So that was a very fun, exciting event. So at this point, trying to make sure I get my notes right this time. We are going to go into closed session. But first, City Clerk Herron, could you please call for public comment for closed session items L1 and L2?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on our closed session items L1 regarding anticipated litigation and L2 regarding existing litigation, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9. Final call for any public comment on our closed session items L1 and L2. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. I'm going to adjourn the meeting to closed session. The City Council will adjourn this regular meeting and reconvene in closed session. The closed session report out will occur immediately following the closed session this evening. Thank you.
having our city council members back on our virtual and in-person days. Mayor Nash, you may reconvene the meeting.
Thank you. I would like to recall the City Council's March 8th regular City Council meeting to order. I would like to introduce Assistant City Attorney Rubens for a report out from tonight's closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There were two closed sessions. On the first item, L1, Conference with Legal Counsel, anticipated litigation. The City Council voted 5-0 to intervene in litigation. The additional information will be available on request after the action has been formally commenced. With regard to item L2, Conference with Legal Counsel, existing litigation, the council gave direction, but otherwise there's no reportable action.
Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.